Welcome to Goofy Harry. Today's adventure: what if the Joker raised Harry Potter? If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. A laugh in the ruins. The stars over Godric's Hollow were the wrong stars. The man sprawled in the lane did not know this yet, but he would. He lay on his back in a puddle of rainwater that reflected the sky the way a cracked mirror reflects a face, and he stared upward until his pupils adjusted, and then he stared harder. The constellations were wrong. The moon was wrong. Even the smell of the air was wrong, like wet wool and church candles, and something underneath both that he could not place. Soot. Old soot. He sat up. His coat was purple. It had been purple before, too, which was comforting because a great many things were not comforting about this evening. His hands were pale as fish belly. His hair was green and damp. He pushed it out of his eyes with fingers that shook only slightly, and that was the detail that woke him fully, the tremor, because he had made a point some years ago of not trembling, not ever, not in front of anyone. He got to his feet. The lane smelled of smoke. "Well," he said to no one in a voice like a broken piano. Well, what's all this then? New act, new stage, new theater altogether." The answer was a slow ribbon of smoke climbing the air over a hedge 100 yards up the road. He followed it. He was curious by nature, and curiosity had always paid his rent. The village was a postcard, or had been. Stone cottages with crooked chimneys, a church with a tilted weathercock, a pub sign swinging with no wind. He drifted up the lane as if the ground itself were uncertain it would hold him, and when he reached the first cottage, which was not the burning one, he passed his hand along the windowsill and came away with flour. Someone had been baking. He put the flour to his tongue. Real. "Not a dream, then," he whispered, pleased. "Pity, I dream beautifully." The burning cottage was at the end of a short garden path. The upstairs window had been blown outward, not in. The glass lay fanned across the grass like a white peacock's tail, and the roof sagged where a beam had failed. The front door stood open. Inside, the hallway was a cathedral of ruin, wallpaper curling like old skin, a hat stand fallen across the floor like a body, and past that, a body that was not like a body at all but was one. He stepped over it and made a small, considered bow. The man on the floor had been tall in life and would be tall in whatever came next. Glasses broken on a slanted nose. A wand, he thought, and tasted the word like a plum, still in the ruined fingers. No blood, no wound, just the shape of a man laid out as if sleeping except for the open eyes. "Terrible posture," the visitor said kindly. "Ought to have bent your knees." He walked up the stairs. The stairs creaked a lullaby. The body at the top was a woman, red-haired, and she lay across a nursery doorway as if she had been running. Her arms were spread. Her eyes were closed. He stood over her for a longer time than he would later admit, because something in the back of his throat was doing something he had long since stopped permitting, and he waited until it stopped, and then he stepped over her, and then he forgot how to breathe for one beat because a baby was watching him from a crib. The baby had its mother's eyes. It did not cry. That was the first interesting thing. It watched him with the patient, unblinking gravity that small children sometimes find when the adults have run out, and there was blood drying at its hairline in a shape like a crooked V, like a fork of lightning branded there by something careless with children. The blood had come from that shape and nowhere else. Someone somewhere had tried to punch a hole in this child and had instead carved him a coat of arms. "Well," the visitor said very softly, "hello." The baby blinked. Hello, he said. "Small person, small person. Did someone make you all by yourself in this very large room?" His voice climbed. Did they leave you? Goodness." He leaned on the crib rail and the crib rail shuddered. "Oh, kiddo, that is rude of them." The baby reached up and took one of his long fingers in its fist. The man did not move. Behind him, the air in the ruined nursery shifted. The smoke thickened and took on a faint, sweet smell, like burning hair. Something congealed in the corner of the ceiling, a vapor with a shape with eyes, a thing that watched him and the baby with a hunger so raw it made the plaster weep. He turned his head slowly and regarded it. "Oh," he breathed, delighted. "Oh, aren't you something, aren't you something?" The vapor coiled tighter. A voice came from it, not a voice, a rasping pretending to be one. "Who shh, he said, lifting one finger from the crib rail and laying it on his lips. "You're interrupting. I don't like being interrupted. You know what I like finishing my bits. Are you a bit?" "I think you might be a bit. Unfinished business, loose end, someone's draft that didn't make it to the final cut." The vapor hissed. A door slammed downstairs. "Oh my," said the man in the purple coat. "Company." He leaned closer to the curling smoke thing until it was inches from his nose, and he smiled, not a normal smile, and whispered, "Boo." The smoke fled through the window. He watched it go. Then he straightened up, cracked his neck, and turned back to the baby, who had not let go of his finger. I think, he said, conversational, that you and I are going to be very dear friends. Footsteps downstairs, heavy. A voice huge and breaking. Lily, Lily, I'm here, oh no, oh no, no, no. The man in the purple coat moved. Fast, one hand behind the crib, lifting the child with a practiced economy that surprised him because he had not known he knew how, the other hand gathering a blanket from the floor and wrapping it around the little body with a single, shaking sweep. The baby made a small sound, a laugh, a real one, tiny and delighted and obscene in that house of ash. He froze, looked down. You little monster, he breathed, you little monster, you're laughing, in here, with all of this, oh, we are going to get along. The footsteps reached the foot of the stairs. The house shook with them, the voice kept coming, James, James, and he could hear, beneath the grief, the baffled machinery of a mind trying to believe, and he recognized that sound because he had heard it in mirrors. He slipped onto the landing. He stepped over Lily Potter. He did not look down. At the top of the stairs, a man the size of a bear had started climbing. He had a beard like a wet hedge and a lantern and eyes already wet, and he stopped when he saw the figure above him, and his great hand went to the pocket of his enormous coat. Hooray you, said the giant, in a voice that had been built to soothe creatures and could not find the shape of this moment. Hooray you then, eh? What are you doing in this house? The man in the purple coat held up the bundle. Neighbor, he said. The voice that came out was not his voice. It was a flat, shocked, muggle voice, the voice of a shopkeeper who had wandered too far into a scene in a film. I heard, I came, the baby was, I didn't know what to. The giant's face caved in. Give I am here, he said, his whole body moving up one step too. Give I am here, sir, give I am here, that's Harry, Thaw's little Harry, he's meant to go to. Oh, said the muggle neighbor voice, quavering. Oh, please, there was another man, he went out the back. Hagrid's head whipped toward the landing window. It was enough. The man in the purple coat was at the bottom of the stairs before the giant had finished turning. He was out the door. He was past the hat stand and the body that was not a body in the fan glass and the garden gate. The night swallowed him. Somewhere beyond the hedge, a motorbike engine was coughing itself awake, and a younger man's voice was shouting, Hagrid, Hagrid, where's? And he did not stop. He did not stop for anything. He carried the bundle through 3 hedges and over a stile and across a churchyard where he paused only for a moment to touch the smallest headstone with his fingertips as a kind of apology or promise or ticket stub, and then he was gone into the dark of a real English dark, the kind where the cows breathed and the earth took you back. Half a mile out, past where the lane bent and a stream crossed under a stone bridge, he stopped. He crouched behind a hedge. He caught his breath. He did not know he had been running until he was not. He parted the blanket and looked at the baby again. The baby looked back, those eyes, that scar. Well, he said. And then again, because it was a useful word, well. He sat down in the wet grass with the child across his knees. From somewhere down the lane he could hear voices, the giant now weeping openly and the younger man shouting commands, and a third voice, old and silvery and terrible in its quiet, and he waited until those voices had faded into a distant hum, and then he tipped his head back and laughed. It was a small laugh at first. It grew. It became the laugh of a man who has discovered a door in a room he had walked past 1,000 times. Oh, he gasped between breaths, oh, that's funny, that's so funny. You are a punchline, small person. You are the funniest thing in this whole sad, sloppy place, do you know that? The baby made a shape with its mouth that was not quite a smile. No, he said, you don't have to laugh yet, you don't have to do anything yet. You just sit there and be a baby and breathe and look at me with those eyes like my eyes are going to tell you a secret, which they may, eventually, when you're old enough to hold the weight of a secret without dropping it on your foot. Back at the cottage, a very tall old man with a silver beard had arrived and knelt by the ruined front door. He had not wept when he saw James. He had not wept when he saw Lily. He put his hand flat to the wall beside the nursery crib and closed his eyes, and in the smoke-stained plaster he read the shape of a curse that should have killed everyone in the room and had not. He stood up slowly. He looked at Hagrid, who was clutching Lily's shawl and keening like a child. He looked at Sirius Black, whose motorbike was still steaming in the lane and who was saying, "Where is he? Where is he?" over and over again, as if repetition were a spell that could make it true. "He is gone," said Albus Dumbledore. Sirius's head came up like a dog's. "What do you mean, gone?" he said. "Gone where?" "Taken," said Dumbledore, and the word was iron. Or, he stopped. He did not finish. He looked at the stairs. He looked at the cracked plaster where a curse had gone wrong. He looked at the burnt edge of the nursery rug where something had stood over the child's crib and something else had stood up to it. "There is a great deal here," he said softly, "that I do not yet understand." "Peter," Sirius said. The word came out like a knife sharpening itself. It was Peter. He was, Sirius, said Dumbledore without taking his eyes from the stairs. "Not now." "If it was Peter, he's got Harry, Albus. We have to." "Not now." The old wizard knelt again and with 2 fingers lifted James Potter's wand from James Potter's ruined hand. He held it as if it were a relic. He looked at Lily. He looked for a long moment at the crib with no child in it. A tear finally found its way down into the folds of his beard, and he did not wipe it because he did not have the time. "Hagrid," he said quietly, "take Sirius, search the village, every garden, every barn. The baby cannot have gone far." The baby by that point was a quarter-mile past the churchyard, asleep against the shoulder of a man who was singing. The man was not a good singer. He had a voice like a violin with a loose string, and he sang in the Muggle way he had learned as a child before the chemicals, and he sang "Rock-a-bye Baby" on the treetop, very slowly, and when he got to the bit about the cradle falling he laughed again, the long sharp laugh, and the baby startled awake and did not cry. The baby watched him with those terrible green eyes. "No, no," he said, "not that bit, I'll skip that bit for you." He walked. He did not know where he was going. He had left a city behind him. He was almost sure of the city. Sometimes the name of it slipped out of his head like an eel through a fist, and the city had had a bat in it, and the bat had been chasing him, and there had been a bridge, and there had been a boat, and there had been a sudden bright loud green, a green like the inside of a bottle, a green like. He paused on the lane and looked down at the baby's open eyes and shivered and laughed again, softer, a green like those. "Oh, you," he said, and touched the baby's nose with one pale finger. "Oh, you and me, what a mess we're going to make of this place." He reached a crossroads, and because he had no reason to pick one over the other, picked the one that smelled less of cows. He walked until dawn. At dawn he found a milk truck idling outside a village shop, and while the milkman was inside paying for his tea, the man in the purple coat helped himself to the cab, the engine, and a pint of orange juice and drove on humming. The child slept. On the back seat where the milkman would never have looked, there was a folded pram, a real pram, old-fashioned, black-hooded, the kind nobody in Gotham used anymore and perhaps never had. He would never explain how it got there. He would tell himself later, when he thought about it at all, that the universe sometimes gave you a pram when it felt guilty about other things. He drove east. The sun came up ahead of him and warmed the windscreen. The baby stirred and opened its eyes and made a small indignant sound, hungry probably, and the man took one hand off the wheel and reached back and laid his long fingers lightly on the baby's chest and felt it breathing. "Easy," he said. "Easy, little man, Daddy's driving." The word fell out of his mouth before he knew he was going to say it. He tested it by saying it again. "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy's driving, little man. Daddy's taking you somewhere nice." Daddy doesn't actually know where, but that is, as they say, part of the bit. The milk truck rumbled. The hedgerows blurred. Back in Godric's Hollow, men were searching for the baby in the wrong direction. A great wizard was sitting at a kitchen table in a ruined house and crafting a letter to a sister who lived in a house on Privet Drive. The letter would never be delivered. The house would never be told. On the lip of the baby's forehead, under the drying blood, the scar was already beginning to settle into the shape it would wear for the rest of his life. The man in the purple coat looked at his reflection in the milk truck's rearview mirror. He had blood on his chin. He did not know whose. He licked a thumb and rubbed at it, and then he gave up, and then he smiled at himself, because he had always liked the way he looked when a job had just started. "Oh, kiddo," he said to the mirror, to the rear view, to the sleeping baby in the folded pram on the back seat, to himself. "Oh, I am going to ruin you magnificently." And the milk truck rolled on, east into England, east into a country that did not know it yet had a problem. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Growing up with Daddy J, the first place was a theater. It was condemned, and it was on the outside of Blackpool, and it had once housed a pantomime troupe with ambition and a roach problem. And by the winter of 1981, the roof leaked in 4 places and the rats had organized. The man in the purple coat let them keep their organization. A union is healthy, small person, even among vermin, and he set up his nursery on the stage, behind a half-collapsed velvet curtain the color of dried wine. He dragged a clawfoot bathtub into the wings for a cot. He lined it with theater-prop fur. He painted a star over it in gold. The baby, who by the first morning had been informed that his name was Harry, slept in that bathtub for 9 months and did not fuss. The man taught himself to warm milk on a broken footlights rig. He sang. By spring he had begun to stop flinching when he caught his own reflection, which was a small but measurable victory. He had, by degrees, accepted that he was somewhere else. The sky was the wrong sky, and the currency had a queen on it, and when he tried to find himself in a stolen telephone book, there was no him to find, and this was a loss the size of a continent, and he handled it by pretending it was a gift. He called it opportunity. He called it an audition. He called it, when he was sentimental and only the baby could hear him, a little running away. The baby grew. In the second place, a caravan with dented skin parked in a wood outside a town in Cornwall. Harry learned to walk. He learned to walk by climbing the man's trouser legs while the man was trying to read a stolen newspaper, and by the time the baby had reached the belt, the man had given up on the newspaper and was watching him the way one watches an animal one has promised not to pet. "Steady," he said, "steady, small person, chin up, ribs up, that's the secret. You always look better if you don't apologize for existing." Harry fell into his lap. "Fine," the man said. "Apologize sometimes, tactically." The caravan's previous tenant had been a retired circus clown, which was a piece of cosmic humor the man in the purple coat accepted with the grim acknowledgement due to a rival who had outbid him for the joke. The walls were still painted with little red noses and long, sad shoes. The kitchen cabinets had names like Pickled and Surprise written on them in a hand that had done something to the writer's wrist. The man studied those cabinets for a long time on the first day. He took down the word surprise and hung it over the baby's cot instead. Harry, at 2, laughed at it. He did not know what it said. He only liked the shape. At 3, he made something fly. It was a kitchen knife. The man had been teaching him the names of things. Spoon, 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 say spoon, Harry, there we go, good lad, when a person who was not supposed to be in the caravan was in the caravan. The man had been on the floor, cross-legged, showing Harry how to balance a teacup on the back of a hand. He had not been looking at the door. Later he would remember exactly when he had heard the latch, and he would think, too late, you fool," and he would not say this aloud, because later he was driving with Harry in the passenger seat eating crisps and they were both laughing. At the time, however, the man in the doorway was holding a crowbar. He was young. 20 maybe. He had the face of a boy who had told himself that tonight he would be brave. His eyes found the man in the purple coat and the child on the floor, and his face briefly lost all its color. "Oh," said the visitor in the purple coat pleasantly. "Hello." "Wallet," said the boy. His voice shook like a tin roof. "Wallet, now." "Certainly," said the man, not moving. "Harry, would you pass the gentleman my wallet? It's on the counter there behind the—" Harry 3 looked at the kitchen counter. The kitchen knife on the counter rose off the counter. It did not rise the way a man would lift it. It rose the way a leaf rises when the wind changes. It drifted. It turned lazily in the air with its point angling toward the open door. The boy with the crowbar opened his mouth. The knife hit him in the meat of the shoulder, the hilt first, because Harry at 3 had opinions but not aim, and the boy dropped the crowbar and dropped himself after it, and he cried. He cried in great heaving childish sobs that did not go with his adult face, and the man in the purple coat was on him before the knife had finished ringing on the floor. He picked the knife up. He looked at it. He looked at Harry. He looked at the knife again. Then he did a thing. He tucked the knife into the boy's belt loop. He lifted the boy up off the floor by the scruff of his jacket. He walked him to the door. He spoke very gently into his ear. "You are going to walk," he said, "in a straight line away from this caravan until you reach the road. You are going to turn right. You are going to walk 4 miles. You are going to reach a pub called the Duke of Cornwall. You are going to go into that pub. You are going to tell no one about us. You are going to drink 1 pint of lager. You are going to go home. And every morning for the rest of your life, when you wake up, you are going to thank the child with the green eyes, because the child with the green eyes is why you have a life. Do you understand me?" The boy understood him. The boy left. The man closed the door and leaned against it. His heart was doing something unfamiliar. He looked across the caravan at Harry, who was looking back and whose small mouth was still slightly open in the shape of the word spoon. The man came across the floor and knelt. He took Harry's round face between his long hands. He made a serious face. "You," he said, "did the thing." Harry blinked. "You did the thing," said the man. "My son did the thing. My son is a wizard. My son," and here the man found he could not keep the serious face on anymore. "My son is a wizard," and he was shouting it, and he was on his knees cackling, and he was hoisting Harry up over his head like a trophy and shaking him gently, and Harry started to laugh, and the laugh of the boy was already a little bit his and a little bit not. The tie of the burglar, incidentally, had come loose during the grappling. The man, being what he was, kept it. He hung it on a nail beside the door the next morning. A day later he wrote on it, in black marker, in the small neat hand he used for things that mattered, "Harry, aged 3, first floating object, acquittal SCCURED." He framed it because frames gave things weight. Harry at 3 was not yet the child he would become. He was rangy and quiet, with a tangle of black hair and eyes too old for his face, and a habit of watching adults when they didn't know they were being watched. He listened. He listened to his father singing in the early mornings, and to the wireless the man kept for news, and to the wind through the caravan roof, and when Harry at 3 laughed, he laughed in a way that made you think of a stream finding a new path through a field. He loved his father. His father was strange. Other fathers, he suspected sometimes, watching them through the window of a village shop, did not sing quite the way his father sang, did not put on quite the amount of makeup his father put on before going out at night. did not keep the kind of library his father kept. His father's library traveled in a steamer trunk. It contained Machiavelli and Shakespeare and the penny dreadful called Sweeney Todd, and a book about stage magic called Our Magnificent Secrets, and a paperback Bible that his father had annotated with furious red ink, see comments, and a stack of illustrated children's books that were, in fact, for Harry. His father read to Harry every night. He did the voices. The voices were very good. When Harry was 5, the owls began to come. They did not come to the caravan. They came to the nearest post office, 5 miles away, and by the time the postmistress opened her shutters in the morning, she would find 3 tawny owls sitting in the rafters of the inner room looking at her as if they had taken rooms there. The letters they carried were addressed to Mr. H. J. Potter, the small boy, the caravan in the woods, Cornwall, and the postmistress, who had been warned by her husband 20 years ago never to ask about anything she didn't understand, sent them away. She sent them away in increasingly polite notes back with the bird. No such address, she wrote, please advise. The birds returned, the letters multiplied, the postmistress grew thinner and her husband worried about her. The man in the purple coat was standing at the kitchen window of the caravan on the morning he first saw a tawny owl perched on the petrol cap of their Morris Minor. He did not move for some time. He watched the owl watched him. Harry, 5, who had been brushing his teeth with great attention, came and stood beside his father and pressed his forehead to the glass. That's a bird, said Harry. That is, said the man, a messenger. From who? From people, said the man, who want you back. Harry considered this. He went on brushing his teeth. I don't want to go, he said around the toothbrush. No, said the man, neither do I. He stared at the owl for another long beat. Back to your teeth, small person. Daddy needs to think, he thought. He thought for 2 days. At the end of the second day he drove into the nearest large town and bought, from a man who did not ask questions, the body of a boy not much older than Harry who had, tragically, died of an aneurysm in the kitchen of a children's home the previous week and had no family to claim him. The man paid in cash. He wept a little. He drove the body home in the back of the milk truck which he had kept. He had repainted it blue and removed the decals and added a false license plate, because a working vehicle is a friend, and that night after Harry had gone to sleep he set the caravan on fire. He set the fire with care. He laid the other boy in Harry's bed. He burned Harry's favorite stuffed rabbit beside it because a scene should have its props. He burned his own wallet. He took Harry still sleeping in the steamer trunk and the Morris Minor which he had also repainted, and he drove them both 11 miles east to a shepherd's hut he had found 3 months earlier and had kept in reserve for a day exactly like this. He did not look back. The flame took the caravan in a hurry. A week later, an old wizard with a silver beard stood at the lip of a burned-out clearing and looked at a blackened bed frame in which a small body had curled up like a fern. There was a stuffed rabbit melted into the mattress. There was a smaller pile of bones on a chair nearby, as if a man had been sitting and watching the child sleep when they had been taken by the fire. The old wizard knelt in the ash. He did not speak for a long time. His hand trembled over the bed frame. He let it fall. Dumbledore had spent 4 years searching. He had sent feelers into the Muggle world. He had spoken to Aurors and to social workers and to a very tired woman named Petunia in a small house on Privet Drive, who had looked at him with an expression of such bleached and carefully cultivated incomprehension that he had, after an hour, walked away from her doorstep without ever saying the boy's name. He had watched. He had waited. He had felt the delicate charms he had set on the Potter line flicker and fade, one by one, in a way that could mean only one of 2 things. Either the boy was surrounded by protections he could not breach, or the boy was dead. He knelt now in the ash in Cornwall, and he let himself believe. He walked out of the clearing an older man than he had walked into it. He went home to Hogwarts. He closed the door to his office for 3 days. On the 4th day he came out and he picked up the threads of his life, and he did not mention Harry Potter again except to the portraits who asked, and he told them gently that the boy was gone. In the shepherd's hut, 11 miles east, the boy turned 6. He turned 6 sitting on the lap of a father who had painted his face because it was a special day. They ate a cake the father had made from a mix and decorated with a pound of sweets from a petrol station. They lit 1 candle. Harry blew it out. He made a wish. He did not tell his father what the wish was because his father had taught him that a wish told was a wish squandered, and Harry at 6 already understood that the rules of economy his father preached were real. He wished only that they could stay here forever, the 2 of them with the cake. "Happy birthday, small person," said the Joker. It was the first time he had said that name out loud, and he said it like a confession, and he did not say it again for a year. At 7, Harry had read Macbeth. He did not understand all of it. He understood enough. His father had read him the dagger speech one night by the light of a paraffin lamp, and Harry had sat very still on the floor with his back against the stove, and when his father had finished he had said in his small, clear voice, "It's his own dagger, isn't it?" The Joker had looked down at his son in the lamplight. "What do you mean, kiddo?" "There's no dagger," Harry said. "There's his own hand. He's deciding. He's talking himself into it." "Yes," said his father after a long time. "Yes, that's just so." At 7, Harry also read Machiavelli, which his father had started reading to him by accident one drunken evening and had continued reading to him because it had stuck. Harry preferred the anecdotes about foxes and lions to the abstract bits. His father let him pick the chapters. His father let him skip the dull parts. His father was, in this and most things, a generous teacher. In a disused tunnel under a Welsh railway line that winter, he taught Harry how to pick a lock. He taught him on a padlock first, then on a simple pin tumbler, then on a deadbolt. Harry picked the deadbolt in 9 minutes the first time. He picked it in 6 minutes the second. The Joker sat on an oil drum and watched. "The trick," he said, around a cigarette he was not actually smoking, "is not force, never force. The lock wants to open, everything wants to open. You only have to be patient enough to listen to what it wants." He paused. "Also, if you cannot pick it, break the door, but never in that order." Harry tried the deadbolt again. By the end of the afternoon, he had the pin tumbler in 3 minutes. He sat on the tunnel floor with the lock in his lap and his fingernails black. He looked up at his father. "Am I good, Dad?" The Joker did not answer for a moment. He was looking at a place on the tunnel wall just above Harry's head, at a water stain shaped, if you squinted, like a bat with its wings folded. "You're very good," he said. At 8, Harry stole a watch. He stole it from a man in a train station who had been standing very close to a woman with a pram, and who had made, as Harry passed, an accidental brushing motion that had netted him a handkerchief from the woman's coat pocket. Harry had watched this with the calm interest of a boy who was keeping score. 30 yards down the platform, while the man was counting his winnings, Harry walked by him and took his watch off his wrist and kept going. He did not run. He did not look back. He took the watch to his father, who was waiting at the ticket counter pretending to read a timetable, and he held it up. His father did not speak for a count of 3. His whole face did something Harry did not have a word for yet. "Put it back," said the Joker very gently. Harry looked up at him. "We don't steal from working men, small person. We steal from men who steal. Go on, back you go. He hasn't noticed. He won't notice." Harry did as he was told. He put the watch on the man's wrist on the way past, a trick his father had shown him the month before, harder than taking, required a second's pressure at the clasp, and he came back and the Joker bent down and took his son's small hand in his own long one. "Good boy," he said. "Good boy. That was a test. You passed. You didn't even know it was a test. You passed anyway. That's the best way." Harry, who had known perfectly well that it was a test, did not tell him so. He only smiled a small, private smile, and his father, catching it, laughed out loud in the train station for no visible reason, which caused an elderly woman near the newsstand to grip her handbag more firmly. At 9, Harry saw his father kill a man. He saw him from a doorway. The man had been beating a dog in an alley behind a fishmonger's in Liverpool, and his father had walked into the alley and had spoken very quietly to the man, and the man had laughed at his father's coat. Harry watched his father's mouth close. He watched his father's hands go still. He watched his father's face stop doing the face it usually did and become a face Harry had not, until that moment, been certain his father owned. He heard his father say, not loud, almost kindly, "Oh." And then Harry, who had been told to wait by the crates, heard the sound of a bottle breaking, and then the sound of a man falling down a long flight of stairs that wasn't there, and then nothing. And then his father came back around the crates with blood on his knuckles and a dog in his arms, and his face was his father's face again, and he handed Harry the dog. "We keep her," said the Joker. "Name her something undignified." Harry named her Tuesday. He did not ask his father about the man in the alley. His father did not volunteer. Weeks later, in the back of a caravan they were borrowing from a woman in Devon, Harry lay in his bunk with Tuesday curled warm against his knees and tried to work out how he felt about it. He was not afraid of his father. He had not been afraid then. He was not afraid now. But he was aware, in a way he would not have been able to articulate, that his father had taken a door and closed it, and that Harry had watched him close it, and that his father had not asked him whether he would like to close it too. He decided at 9, with Tuesday's ribs rising and falling against his shin, that when the time came he would choose his own doors. He did not tell his father this decision. He did not need to, his father already knew. At 10, Harry talked a man out of his own teeth. He did not mean to. The man was a shopkeeper in a village outside Oxford, a large red man with a fat lip and small eyes, and he had, in Harry's hearing, shouted at his wife the way Harry's father sometimes shouted at inanimate objects when he thought Harry was asleep. The shopkeeper's wife had flinched. Harry had very carefully put down the tin of beans he had been about to buy, and he had walked up to the counter, and he had looked at the shopkeeper with his mother's green eyes. "I think," said Harry, in the voice his father called his listening voice, "you're afraid of her." The shopkeeper's face did something. "I think," said Harry, "you're afraid she's going to leave, and you're afraid because she's the only one who ever stayed, and you know that you're not easy to love, and you're angry with her for seeing what you are." The shopkeeper had gripped the counter. "I think," said Harry, "you should tell her all of it right now, because she's 2 feet from the back door, and you only get to say these things while she's still here." The shopkeeper, to his credit, looked at his wife. She was 2 feet from the back door. She had her coat already in her hand. The shopkeeper put his face in his hands. He did not see Harry leave. He did not see Harry's father waiting outside on the curb, leaning on a lamp-post, watching his son through the shop window with an expression that was not quite proud and not quite anything else. "You didn't need me," said the Joker when Harry came out. "No," said Harry. "Do you want chips?" Yes, they went and got chips. They ate them on a bench. Neither of them mentioned the shop. In the last year before the letter came, the man in the purple coat began, without meaning to be quieter. He still sang, he still told jokes. He still set traps for himself in the hallways of their new caravan for the pleasure of watching himself walk into them. But he spent longer hours sitting on the step in the mornings with a cigarette he did not smoke, and he watched Harry feed Tuesday, and he watched Harry read, and he watched Harry do the thing he had begun doing, which was becoming. He did not like it. He did, though. He did and he did not, both things at once. He had taken a baby and had raised him to be like himself, no, not like himself, better than himself, sharper, cleaner, more dangerous. He had been patient. He had been tender. He had taught the boy chess and manners and how to lie and how to tell the truth in a way that hurt more than a lie. And the boy was becoming something he had not designed. The boy kept strays. The boy cried when a certain song came on the wireless and would not say why. The boy had, last Tuesday, asked whether his mother would have liked him. The Joker, when the boy had asked that question, had set down the knife he had been sharpening and had walked out of the caravan and had been gone for 40 minutes. When he came back he had said, "Yes, kiddo, she loved you, they both did," and he had not embellished, he had not made a bit of it. He had told his son the truth, which was the only gift he had ever been able to give without immediately wanting it back. The owl came in June. It came not to post office this time, but to the roof of the caravan in the woods outside a village in Devon, and it tapped on the window above the sink at 5:45 in the morning. The man in the purple coat, who had been awake for an hour, saw it first. He did not call Harry. He stood at the sink in his pajama trousers and his son's red dressing gown, a joke he had with himself every morning, and he looked at the owl. The owl looked at him. After a while he opened the window. The owl came inside, landed neatly on the kitchen counter, turned once in a circle, extended one leg, and dropped an envelope on a plate of last night's toast. The man picked up the envelope. He looked at the writing on it. The writing said, "Mr. H. Potter, the bedroom on the left, the caravan in the field, Otterton, Devon." He laughed. He laughed softly at first, and then less softly, and he laughed until Tuesday came out of the bedroom with her ears up, and then he stopped laughing and knelt down and scratched her head and said, "Go wake your brother, girl." Tuesday went and woke her brother. Harry came out of the bedroom a minute later in pajamas and bare feet, rubbing his eyes. He was, at 11 less a month, thin and dark-haired, and already a head taller than his own caravan had room for. He looked at the owl on the counter. He looked at the envelope in his father's hand. He looked at his father. His father held out the envelope. Harry took it. He opened it. He read it. He read it again. He read the second page, which was a list of books and robes and a cauldron, size 2 pewter. He set the letter down on the counter beside the owl, and he looked up at the Joker, and he smiled. It was a good smile. It was, more than anything else in the caravan that morning, a child's smile. "Dad," he said, "am I going?" "Oh, kiddo," said the Joker, and he was almost whispering, and the morning light through the window caught the green of his hair, and the pale of his long face, and the trembling shape of his hands on the counter. "Oh, kiddo, you are going." And then he roared, and the roar was delight, and it was also something else, and he grabbed his son by the armpits and hoisted him up and spun him, 11 less a month and tall and bony, and Harry laughed, and the Joker laughed, and the owl on the counter shuffled its feathers and looked at the two of them with the weary patience of an animal that had seen families before. "The big show," said the Joker into his son's hair. "The big show, small person, we are going to take them apart." Harry did not answer. He only hugged his father tighter because he did not yet know how to say what he wanted to say, which was that he was not sure whose show it was going to be. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. The letter. The Joker did not open the letter in the usual way. He cleared the kitchen table of the dog and the toast and the small bowl of water bottle caps he was using as currency in a long-running 3-player card game against himself. He laid the envelope down in the precise center of the table. He walked once around the table anti-clockwise. He sat. He produced from somewhere a pair of kitchen shears. And then, with the care of a surgeon or a priest, he cut along the top edge of the envelope from left to right in a single unbroken line. "You should always," he said to Harry, who was leaning on the sink with a mug of tea in both hands, "open important letters in a way that reminds the letter that it is important. Do not use a finger. A finger is a slouch. Do not use a letter opener. A letter opener is a man who owns a letter opener. Use something that could, if it chose, take one of your fingers off. This reminds the letter who is in charge." "You're in charge," said Harry. "Correct, small person." The Joker unfolded the parchment. His eyes scanned the letterhead. He cleared his throat. He produced the first voice. "Dear Mr. Potter," he said in the voice of a very dignified old woman with a head cold, "we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." Harry drank his tea. "Please find enclosed," the Joker went on in a voice that had become a retired military colonel, "a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on the 1st of September. We await your owl by no later than the 31st of July, said Harry. The Joker took a breath. His face did something it only did when he was about to do the voice he enjoyed most. He looked at Harry. He held the letter up in front of him as if it were a hymn sheet. "Yours sincerely," he sang in a voice that was unmistakably a Broadway baritone, "Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress." He spread his arms. "And there should be orchestra here, small person. This letter has understated itself. Not to worry. I have understated a great many letters myself. We will compensate." He set the letter down. He was grinning. "Hogwarts," he said. "Hogwarts, what a name. What a terrifyingly untrustworthy name. Hogwarts, I am already against it. I am already deeply, deeply, deeply in favor of it. Dad, yes, small person. I'm going. I know you are. I'm going alone." The Joker's grin did not move. Only his eyes did, and only for the smallest possible instant. Harry saw it, and his father saw him see it, and neither of them said anything about it. The Joker turned back to the kitchen counter and picked up the second page of the letter, the supply list, and began to read it aloud to himself in a Cockney accent. "Cauldron size 2 pewter 1, standard book of spells grade 1, a wand, kiddo, a real wand. Oh, we are going to have fun with a wand." Harry watched him. He watched his father's back and his father's hair catching the morning light and his father's long fingers tracking down the supply list, and he understood that his father had understood him and had decided not to argue with him and would think about it later alone. The second knock at the door came at 11 in the morning. It was a crisp knock, 3 equal raps spaced to a metronome. The Joker looked up from where he was, for reasons of his own, putting on mascara. He glanced at the window. He glanced at Harry. He smiled the small, careful, full-attention smile he only put on when the stakes were interesting. "Who is it?" he called, in his best Mrs. Wilkins voice. "My name is Minerva McGonagall," said a woman on the other side of the door. "I believe my school has written to you." The Joker went to the door. He opened it the usual inch, a chain on the inside, which he had installed on their third day in the caravan and which he liked very much, and he looked out. Minerva McGonagall stood on the caravan step. She was tall and thin and wore a dark green coat cut in a fashion 40 years out of date, and her black hair was pinned back so severely it looked as if she had dared it to misbehave. She carried a leather satchel. Her face was composed. Her eyes were not. The eyes were taking in the caravan, the man, the chain, the scent of grease paint coming off him, the fact that it was 11 in the morning on a weekday, and the strange soft humming coming from somewhere inside the house. "Oh," said the Joker. "Oh, you're lovely. Come in, come in, come in." He closed the door and undid the chain and opened the door wide. "Forgive the state of the place, Deputy Headmistress. The help didn't come this week. You know how it is. Schools." McGonagall stepped inside. She stopped 2 paces in. She had clocked Harry at the kitchen sink. She had clocked, without seeming to look, the framed tie on the wall and the knives in the block on the counter and the pipe organ in the corner and the dog. Tuesday had not moved from her cushion. Tuesday was watching the guest with the polite interest of a staff member. "Mr. McGonagall paused. I'm sorry, we do not seem to have a Mr. on file." "Call me Jack," said the Joker easily. "Everyone does." It was the first time Harry had heard him use that name. He filed it. He did not show that he had. "Mr. Jack." McGonagall inclined her head. "I have come about this young gentleman. I take it this is Harry." "Harry," said the Joker with a little bow toward his son. "Meet the Deputy Headmistress. Deputy Headmistress, meet my son. Isn't he tall? He ate 3 slices of toast this morning. I keep telling him to go easy on the toast. He never listens." "How do you do?" said Harry, coming forward and offering his hand. McGonagall took it. Her fingers were cold. She looked him in the eye and she did not look away, and Harry, who had been prepared to like her, liked her. "Pleased to meet you, Harry," said McGonagall. "Will you have tea?" said Harry. Thank you, that would be kind. Harry made tea. The Joker sat at the table and watched. He had put the mascara wand away. He had put, indeed, most of himself away in the sense that the person who sat at the table was, if you did not look at him too long, almost a regular man in a slightly tired suit, with a friendly smile and a dog and a son who made tea correctly. McGonagall, who had spent a very long career not being fooled by people, let herself be fooled enough to sit. Harry poured out. He offered milk. He offered sugar. He sat. So, said McGonagall. I imagine, Mr. Jack, that you have some questions. Oh, said the Joker. Oh, do I ever, let's see. Questions, questions, questions. Is there in your school any mandatory dancing? I am in favor of mandatory dancing. There is not, said McGonagall. Pity, and in the matter of school supplies, we will need the list. We have the list. We will endeavor to, acquire the items, discreetly. There is a street in London, said McGonagall. Diagon Alley, it is for our kind. We can provide a guide. Our kind, the Joker tasted the words. I like that phrase, very in-group, very clubhouse. Tell me, Deputy Headmistress, who did you think this young man was before you came to this door? McGonagall looked at him for a long moment. I did not know, she said, that he was alive. Harry, pouring more tea, did not spill it. The Joker, across the table, poured out a long, slow, theatrical sigh. Yes, he said. Yes, I imagine our sudden reappearance has been something of a surprise. I am sorry for that. I rather hoped we'd be left alone. But he spread his hands, and the hands were long and clean and elegant. Life and letters, life and letters. He sipped his tea. McGonagall turned to Harry. Harry, she said, do you know who you are? Harry set down the teapot. He looked at her politely. I'm Harry Potter, he said. My parents were killed when I was a baby. My dad took me in. Your dad. My dad, said Harry. He glanced briefly at the Joker. He looked back at McGonagall. He's been very good to me. There was a silence. Then McGonagall, in the careful, even voice of a woman trying to step across ice without breaking it, asked, Harry, do you know who killed your parents? Yes, said Harry. A man called Voldemort. Dad says he's been dead for years. Dad says, and here Harry permitted himself a small smile, that he never liked the fellow much and is glad he isn't receiving his Christmas cards anymore. McGonagall did not laugh. She did look for just a beat as if she wanted to. Harry, she said. Your name is, in our world, a great deal better known than you perhaps realize. Yes, said Harry. Dad mentioned. We're going to have to be polite about it. The Joker at that picked up a teaspoon and drummed a little roll on the edge of his saucer. He was grinning again, but only in his eyes. Outwardly his face was entirely the face of a man who was delighted with his son. McGonagall set down her cup. Mr. Jack, she said, a word outside if I may. Anything, said the Joker, rising. Anything, Deputy Headmistress. Harry, start on the washing up, would you? I'll be just a moment. They went outside. Harry washed up. He did it slowly. He had good hearing. He could hear, through the caravan's thin wall, the murmur of the woman and his father out on the step. He could hear, within that murmur, that his father was letting McGonagall lie. He could hear distinctly his father's laugh, which he had been waiting for. He heard his father say, oh, he'll be perfectly safe with your man, of course. Yes, of course. What was the name? Hagrid. Hagrid. Oh, I like him already. Tall, you said. And he heard McGonagall say, Mr. Jack, I must be very direct. I do not know what you are. A long pause. And then his father's voice, warm as a hearth. I am the man who raised him, Minerva. Everything else is biography. Another pause. I will be watching, said McGonagall. Of course you will, said the Joker, almost tenderly. It's what you're for. The door opened. McGonagall stepped back inside, and the Joker followed, and Harry at the sink had dried his hands and was setting Tuesday's bowl down for her. He looked up. He smiled, the child's smile. He walked McGonagall to the door with the easy grace of a host. He shook her hand. He stood on the step and waved until the long green coat had disappeared around the bend of the lane. When he came back inside, his father was sitting in the armchair with his eyes closed. You all right, Dad? I'm thinking, kiddo. Give me a minute. Harry waited. She'll send the big one, said the Joker, eyes still closed. They can't afford to trust me alone. That's sensible of them. I would do the same. A big one who can handle a bad situation without making it worse. Not Dumbledore. Dumbledore won't come himself yet. He'll want to hold his own cards until he sees mine. He'll send the giant. The one from the house, said Harry. The Joker opened his eyes. You remember that small person, Bits, said Harry. I remember big hands, said the Joker, and closed his eyes again. The giant came on the following Tuesday. He came at breakfast. He came on a motorbike he had to leave in the lane because it would not fit between the hawthorns, and he came up to the caravan with his great face anxious and his great beard trembling, and he knocked on the door with a knock so careful that Harry inside did not hear it the first time. The Joker did. The Joker was, on that morning, waiting. He was in shirt sleeves. He had made a pot of tea. He had on the kitchen table in a neat row 3 items, a jar of strawberry jam, a loaf of bread, and a bone saw. The bone saw was a bit. "Come in," he called in his own voice, which was a voice he used less and less but had started using more that week, as if saving it up for anyone worth the cost. Hagrid opened the door. He ducked through it. He stood in the caravan, enormous, blinking. He looked at the man at the kitchen table. He looked at the jam, the bread, the bone saw. He looked at the boy on the armchair with the book on his knee who had not bothered to put the book down. The Joker smiled his warmest smile. "Tea, Mr. Hagrid." "Oh," said Hagrid and cleared his throat. "Oh yeah, ta, Mr. Ah, Jack," said the Joker. "Just Jack, sit, sit. The saw is decorative, don't mind it. It reminds me to behave." Hagrid sat. The caravan's sofa made a sound. Hagrid took the offered mug in 2 hands. He looked very briefly at Harry. "'Lo, Harry," he said. "Hello, Mr. Hagrid," said Harry. He had put the book down at last. "Dad's told me about you. Has he now? He says you were kind to my mum and dad. He says they liked you." Hagrid's chin wobbled. He took a long sip of his tea in silence. "Mr. Hagrid," said the Joker, leaning forward on his elbows, "I have thought about this morning for some time. I want to say something before we all get down to business. I want to say," and his voice had gone quiet, with none of the manic edge, none of the theater, only the small, steady note of a man who has learned to mean what he says. "I want to say thank you for coming for him the first time. I was told, the large man with the great heart, I know what you would have done if you had found him. He would have grown up in a good house. He would have been loved. I want you to know that I know that, and that I am grateful." Hagrid, who had been on the verge of weeping since he had arrived, wept then. Harry, on the armchair, watched his father. He was learning something. He was learning that his father could mean it, and could also mean the bone saw on the table, and that both would be true at the same time, and that his father did not find this a contradiction. Hagrid took Harry to London at noon. He took him alone. That was the deal. The Joker sat on the caravan step and watched them go, a giant and a boy, both of them smaller than they had been, and when they had disappeared around the lane he went inside and he closed the door and he sat at the kitchen table with the bone saw between his palms, and he did not move for a long time. London was noisy. Hagrid walked ahead. Harry walked slightly behind, taking it in, the tall, dull buildings, the sheen on the puddles, the way the people turned their heads away from Hagrid as if there were a rule against looking. Hagrid pretended not to notice this. Hagrid had spent a lifetime pretending not to notice this. They came at last to a pub that Harry saw because Hagrid pointed at it, and when Hagrid pointed at it, Harry could see it, and when Hagrid's hand came down, Harry could not. The Leaky Cauldron. Its windows were small. Its air was brown. Inside, Hagrid nodded at the landlord, who nodded back, and then the landlord saw Harry and for a moment forgot how to breathe, and the bar went, by inches, quiet. Harry took off his cap and smiled the polite smile his father had taught him for rooms that had stopped breathing. "Gentlemen," he said to the room in a clear, clean voice that carried, "ladies, good afternoon." That strangely did it. The landlord laughed. 2 witches near the fireplace laughed. Someone offered their hand. By the time Hagrid had gotten him across the bar and out into the backyard, Harry had shaken 9 hands, been patted on the back twice, been given a butter beer by a man he would never see again, and had answered exactly no personal questions at all. Hagrid, tapping the bricks in the back wall with a pink umbrella, was shaking his head. "Ye're somethin', Harry. Ye're really somethin'. Dad's trained me. Yeah, I can see that." The brick slid aside. Diagon Alley bloomed. Harry stood in the archway for a moment. He had in his life seen many extraordinary places. He had stood in the burned hall of the condemned theater with his father and had looked up through the collapsed roof at the moon. He had stood at the lip of the Welsh tunnel at sundown and watched the sky make liquid shapes. He had stood at 9 on the pier at Clacton-on-Sea with his father at dawn and had thought, this is the best place in the world, but he had not seen anything like this. He stepped through. Gringotts was first because Gringotts was always first. Hagrid had a letter from Dumbledore. The letter was a folded piece of parchment that a goblin looked at twice. The goblin named Griffook took them in a cart that clattered like teeth down into the dark. Harry's vault was the Potter vault, and it had not been opened in a decade, and when Griffook swung the door wide, the gold inside glittered in its banked stacks like an animal waking up. Hagrid made a quiet sound. Harry did not. He stepped inside. He scooped a handful of coins into a bag. He considered the pile, and then, because his father had taught him that a man who took too much drew the wrong eyes, he did not scoop a second handful. He tied the bag. He stepped out. "There's a second," said Griffook. "Vault 713, by express instruction. I am to take the bearer of this letter down alone." "I'll stay up here," said Harry politely. "I'm not the bearer." Hagrid looked at him. "You can go in a cart on your own, can't ya, Harry?" "Of course," said Harry, "but you're the bearer. That's the protocol. We should honor protocol." He smiled up at the goblin. "Right, sir." Griffook, amused despite himself, inclined his head a quarter of an inch. Harry waited in the lobby while Hagrid went down. He did not sit. He walked the perimeter. He memorized the position of every clerk and every door. He counted the coins in a teller's drawer by the patterns of their edges. It took him 6 minutes. He returned to the front just as Hagrid came back with a small paper-wrapped parcel tucked under his arm. "All right, Harry, all right," Hagrid told him on the stairs that the parcel was Hogwarts business. Harry nodded. He did not ask. He knew enough from 10 years of his father's habits to know what it looked like to tell a child he was not to be told something. They bought the robes at Madame Malkin's. Madame Malkin stood him on a stool and began to pin. Another boy was on the stool beside him, a pale boy with a pointed chin and white blonde hair and an accent that had been practiced in front of a mirror. Harry took him in inside one glance, money, insecure, bored, looking for someone to like him. "Hogwarts too," said the pale boy. "Yes. My father's next door buying my books and my mother is up the street looking at wands. I'm going to drag them both to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one and smuggle it in somehow." Harry considered him. "You sound," said Harry kindly, "like someone who has never been told number." The pale boy's pincushion face did something. I like it," said Harry. "Don't get me wrong, I like the confidence. It's a skill, but you'll want to learn when to turn it off. People don't like being told they're missing something they should have." The pale boy stared at him. "What's your name?" he said. "Harry." "Harry what?" Harry smiled a small smile. "Just Harry for now." The pale boy looked at him. He was not stupid. He was, in fact, faster than most people credited him. He looked at Harry's forehead, at the line of dark hair that fell across it, and his face went very still. "Oh," said the pale boy very softly. "Oh, tell your father," Harry said. "Nothing at all. I don't mind myself, but it would ruin the surprise, and your father strikes me as the sort of man who appreciates a well-timed entrance." The pale boy swallowed. "Draco," he said. "Malfoy. Nice to meet you, Draco Malfoy." "Nice to meet you, Harry." They did not shake hands. They were both on pinning stools, but something between them was agreed. Madame Malkin, who had heard nothing she would admit to, finished their fittings without a word. Harry and Hagrid bought books. Harry bought more books than the list. Hagrid looked sideways but said nothing. Harry also bought, with a handful of bronze, a very small enamel pin shaped like a pair of playing cards. He did not tell Hagrid what it was for. Later, much later, he would pin it to the inside of his school trunk. They went to Ollivander's last. Ollivander's was a long, dim shop with a smell like old sawdust and somebody's grandmother, and the doorbell tinkled in a minor key. Hagrid hunched his shoulders coming in. He seemed to shrink. The old man behind the counter did not shrink. The old man behind the counter had pale eyes of a color Harry could not name, and he was, without appearing to move, exactly where he had always been. "Ah," said Ollivander. "Mr. Potter, I wondered when I would see you. Mr. Ollivander, your father holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, pliable. Wand for transfiguration, your mother willow swishy, 10 1/4, excellent for charms." Ollivander's eyes on Harry's face were doing something that was not quite looking. "And you, Mr. Potter, you let us see." He took down a box. He handed Harry a wand. Harry held it. It did nothing. "No," said Ollivander. "No number." He took it away. He handed him another. It did nothing. Number another, another, another. The pile on the counter grew. Harry's patience did not. He had, at the start, offered his father's polite smile. He was now offering the other smile, his own, which was smaller and showed fewer teeth, and was, Ollivander noted, as unsettling as the Joker's smile had been in the caravan, although neither man in the shop could have compared. Ollivander, on the 18th wand, stopped. He looked at Harry. He walked slowly to the back of the shop. He climbed a ladder. He reached up into a shelf that even he did not reach into often, and he brought down a very long, thin box, and he carried it to the counter, and he laid it between them. "A wand," he said, "I did not make recently. A wand I have not, in fact, shown to anyone for some time. Holly, phoenix feather, 11 inches, pliable." Hagrid at the back of the shop made a small sound. Ollivander opened the box. Harry reached out. His fingers closed on the wand. The moment his fingers closed on it, the shop got quiet in a way shops do not normally get quiet, the quiet of a room in which air has stopped considering its options, and Harry felt a warmth go up his arm and across his shoulders and down his spine and into his heels, and a handful of sparks the color of a summer night fell from the tip of the wand onto the counter, and the counter did not scorch. Ollivander did not smile. "Curious," he said. "Curious, curious." "What's curious?" said Harry politely. "The phoenix whose tail feather sits in your wand, Mr. Potter," said Ollivander, "gave only one other feather, only one, and the wand that feather sits in," his pale eyes were doing the thing again, "gave you that scar." Harry looked down at the wand. He looked back up. "Interesting," he said. "Interesting," said Ollivander. "Yes, that is one word." Harry paid. He took the box. He turned to the door. "Mr. Potter." He turned back. "The wand chooses the wizard," said Ollivander. And the wizard sometimes chooses what to make of that choice. I do not know what you will make, but I expect," his voice dry and dusty, "to hear about it. Goodbye, Mr. Ollivander." "Goodbye, Mr. Potter," the bell rang. They came out onto Diagon Alley in the late afternoon light, and Hagrid was very quiet on the walk back to the Leaky. Harry did not press him. Hagrid finally said at the door of the pub, "You know, Harry, there's some things Dumbledore would want you to hear. He asked me to pass on a word or two about your parents, about what's expected." "That's kind of him," said Harry. Hagrid stopped. He took off his hat. He turned it in his hands. "He'll want to see ye himself, Harry, at the school, when ye have settled in. Is that all right?" "Of course," said Harry. "I would like very much to meet the headmaster." He met Hagrid's eye. "I've heard a great deal about him." Hagrid nodded. Hagrid did not at that moment know whether what he had heard was the answer he wanted or the answer he feared. The Joker was waiting at King's Cross on the 1st of September. He wore a charcoal suit. He had dyed his hair brown for the day, or something close to brown, and he had scrubbed the grease paint off, and he had on a pair of sunglasses, although it was not sunny. He looked from the neck down like an ordinary man in his 40s, with a trolley and a son and a trunk and a dog who was today on a leash. Tuesday had been permitted to come say goodbye. She was doing a good job. People still stepped aside for the Joker. They could not have told you why. They only knew, the way people know who should not be approached on a tube train, that this was a man to walk around. The Joker, strolling up the platform with Harry on one side and the trolley on the other, accepted the clearance politely. He tipped an invisible hat at a woman who had pressed her child behind her. He did not smile. At the barrier between platforms 9 and 10, he stopped. He turned Harry to face him. He put both hands on his son's shoulders. "All right," he said. "All right, Dad. Remember, yes, say it." Harry smiled. "Chin up, ribs up, don't apologize for existing. Lie when it's useful, tell the truth when it's brutal. Read the room. Never the first to show my hand, never the last either. Don't get caught. If I get caught, don't get caught with anyone else. Trust nobody all the way. Trust some people some of the way. Pick those people slowly. Be kind to the ones who clean the floors. Take no prisoners in chess. Eat my vegetables. Good boy, Dad." "Yes." Harry looked at him. He did not say the thing he wanted to say, which was "I love you," which his father did not need to hear because his father knew, and also because his father was, in his own way, allergic. Instead, Harry said, "Don't burn down the caravan while I'm gone. I make no promises." Harry stepped forward. His father stepped back. His father's hand left his shoulder. His father's face did one last thing, the eyes, the small failing of the eyes, and then steadied. Harry pushed the trolley at the barrier and walked through it. On the other side, a great scarlet engine was breathing. He blinked in the different light. He looked around. He was 11. He was a boy with a trunk. He was the ward of a man who had raised him on Shakespeare and lockpicks and the tactics of small cruelty. He had his mother's eyes and a wand in his pocket that had been shaped by the bird that had shaped the wand that had killed her, and he was about to get on a train toward a school full of people who had been told, at various ages and with various authorities, that he was alive or dead or coming. Harry shouldered his way into a compartment near the end of the train. He put his trunk up. He sat down by the window. He looked out at platform 9 3/4, at the parents waving at the steam, at the rows of excited, frightened, expectant small faces. A boy with red hair knocked on the compartment door. "Mind if I, please," said Harry, and gestured to the opposite seat. "I've been hoping for company." The boy, tall, freckled, slightly frayed around the edges in a way Harry warmed to immediately, came in and shoved his own trunk up. He sat. He stuck out a hand. "Ron," he said. "Ron Weasley." "Harry," said Harry. "Harry Potter." Ron's hand stopped in the air. Harry took it. He shook it briefly. He let go. He was, by long practice, already doing what his father called the after-handshake smile, the one that said yes, and now we have that out of the way, and now I am a person. "Blimey," said Ron, "I know. Have you really got the—" Harry, without fuss, brushed his fringe aside. The scar was smaller than Ron had been expecting. It was paler. It looked less like a lightning bolt than like a crack in a teacup. "Oh," said Ron. "Yes, everyone thought you were dead." Harry smiled a small smile. "Yes, long story. I'll tell it to the right people at the right time." "Right." Ron sat down. He was looking very carefully, not at the scar. That's fair. Tell me about yourself." Ron, who had arrived in the compartment carrying the weight of his family name like a bag of bricks, was startled to find the weight gone in the space of a sentence. He blinked. He opened his mouth. "Oh," he said. "Well, there's 6 of us. I'm the second to youngest. I've got an older sister too, actually, Ginny. She's still at home, my mum." Harry leaned back against the window. He listened. He listened the way his father had trained him to listen, which was with most of his attention on the speaker and a little of his attention on the door of the compartment and a thread of his attention on his own face. He smiled when Ron's mum became funny. He kept his smile neutral when Ron got onto Percy. He asked at one careful moment, "And your dad?" Because he had learned that men without fathers in stories were men under strain, and when Ron lit up at the mention of Arthur Weasley, Harry filed the Weasleys under ally and made a note to read. Halfway to Hogwarts, the compartment door slid open again. A girl stood there, bushy brown hair, front teeth slightly too large for her mouth, a trunk behind her, a look on her face of someone who had decided she would knock on every door on the train until she had met everyone on the train, and who was visibly displeased that this should be necessary. "Has anyone seen a toad?" a boy called Neville's lost one. "Sorry, no," said Ron. "Ah," said Harry, "likely at the end of the carriage under a seat. Toads go to the darkest, quietest corners of enclosed spaces. They also prefer a vibration." The girl, who had been ready to bustle on, stopped. "How do you know that?" "I had a toad once." "What happened to it?" "My dog ate it," said Harry, and at Ron's horrified face added, "It was an accident. She was very sorry." The girl looked at him with narrowed eyes. "You're Harry Potter," she said Harry. "I've read about you. Modern magical history, the rise and fall of the dark arts. I'm in one of those. You're in all of them." Harry considered this. "I'll have to read them," he said. "It's always useful to know what people think they know about you." The girl, who Harry would discover later that evening was named Hermione Granger, did not know what to do with this answer. She stood there a moment. She looked at Harry for a beat longer than was entirely polite. Then she said briskly, "Hermione Granger, nice to meet you. You'll want to change into your robes. We'll be arriving soon," and she was gone, sliding the door shut behind her. Ron let out a breath. "She's going to be exhausting." Harry smiled. "She's going to be useful." Somewhere farther down the train, Draco Malfoy, who had not in the end told his father anything at all about the boy at Madame Malkin's, was standing by the window of his own compartment watching the countryside blur into a wet black twilight. He was trying to make his face do the face his father had told him to wear when he arrived at Hogwarts, and was finding it harder than usual. He was thinking about a skinny boy with messy dark hair who had told him, politely, that he sounded like someone who had never been told number he was thinking, also that he had liked it. Outside the train, the sky went dark. The castle rose out of the lake. Harry stood in the corridor with his small trunk at his feet, and with a wand in his pocket that had a twin in the hands of the man who had killed his parents, and with a quiet high gladness filling his chest for reasons he could not have explained, because he had been told all his life by the man who had raised him, that the truly interesting part of any story begins when you walk through a door you were not supposed to walk through. He looked up at the castle. He smiled his father's smile. "Hello," he said softly to the towers. "Thank you for having me." Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. The boy who smiled. The great hall smelled of wax and roast meat and old stone. Harry stood in a line of damp 11-year-olds between the house tables and the staff dais, and he looked up into the enchanted ceiling, and for a moment he permitted himself to be a boy. The sky up there was lovelier than the sky outside. Whoever had made the ceiling had known that the truth of a winter sky was more generous than any replica of it, and had gone ahead and replicated it anyway, with love, which was, Harry thought, the honest thing about this place so far. The Sorting Hat began to sing. He barely listened. He was cataloging. The staff table, the old man in the middle with the beard, blue-robed, half-moon spectacles, hands steepled, Dumbledore. To his right, a sour-faced man in black with a face like a thin knife, watching Harry already. Snape. To his left, a small man with a turban who kept licking his lips. Quirrell. Harry's eyes caught on Quirrell for half a beat longer than on the others, because something in Quirrell's posture was ever so slightly lopsided, as if the turban were heavier on one side than it should have been. He put it away in the back of his mind. He watched the children ahead of him stumble up to the stool. Hermione Granger went to Gryffindor with a cry of triumph from the red table. Draco Malfoy was to Slytherin before the hat had fully grazed his head. Ron Weasley, after a hesitation that Harry felt sympathetic toward, was to Gryffindor. Neville Longbottom, whose name Harry now knew, went to Gryffindor and carried the hat halfway back to the stool before realizing it. Susan Bones, Hannah Abbott, Seamus Finnegan, Parvati Patil, names flickered, faces turned toward the stool and away. And then McGonagall in her own voice again said, "Potter, Harry." The hall did what halls do. Harry walked up to the stool in the noise. He sat. The hat came down over his eyes. The world went dark and dusty, and the dust smelled of a room a very old witch had smoked in for 60 years. Said a voice inside his head. Harry kept very still. "Oh dear," said the voice. "Oh dearie me. Yes, I see it. I see everything. Everything you've been taught and everything you've taught yourself, which are not always the same thing, and everything you will teach yourself, which is the interesting part." "Where do I go?" said Harry quietly. "Patience. Brains, yes, oh yes, you have brains. A good deal of cunning, too. You would do well in Slytherin. You would do very well." And there is loyalty, also a peculiar loyalty, not to persons entirely, but to small beloved things, dogs and women and the quiet ones, which speaks to Hufflepuff, though they would not know what to do with you. And there's a rage in you banked which could grow teeth if you wanted it to. Gryffindor would give you that. And there is a hunger to know, a root-deep, pitiless hunger which sorts you to Ravenclaw as fast as anything I've seen in 300 years. You cannot decide, I never cannot decide. I am deciding, I am asking. Asking what do you want? Harry 11 on a stool in a hall full of people who had been told he was dead considered the question. Where do you do the most damage, he thought, to the people who need it done to them? The hat made a sound that was almost a laugh and almost something else. Oh dear, it said. Oh dear, 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 that is a question. And a dangerous one and an honest one. Harry waited. You are your father's son, said the hat, both of them. That, I think, is the point of you. And both of them would argue for different houses, and both would be right. But I am to choose, and I choose Slytherin, the hat cried. The green and silver table was slower to cheer than the red and yellow had been. Slytherin did not cheer for the boy who lived as a matter of reflex. Slytherin had spent 10 years hearing that the boy who lived would rather die than come to them. The cheer that went up was lower-keyed. It was also, Harry noted, warmer than he had expected, because Slytherin had just been given a prize they had not asked for, and they knew it, and they knew what to do with prizes. He slid off the stool. McGonagall lifted the hat away. Her face, for one unguarded moment, was something Harry did not have the time to read. He walked to the Slytherin table. Draco Malfoy made room for him next to himself with a small inclining of the chin. Harry sat. A prefect, a boy with sleek dark hair and a long pale face, leaned over and shook his hand firmly and said, "Welcome, Potter. I'm Gemma's second. I'll make sure you have what you need the first week." That was all. Slytherin, it turned out, had decided to be professional. At the head table, Dumbledore's hands had not unsteepled. Snape had gone so still he might have been carved. Quirrell was smiling. Harry did not like Quirrell's smile. After dinner, Gemma Farley led the first years down to the common room. Down, down, down. Below the great staircase and into the dungeons and down again, and through a stone corridor that smelled of wet lime, and Gemma stopped at a bare stretch of wall and said Concordia in a clear voice, and the wall opened onto a long green-lit room with a fire that burned silver. The common room received them in a respectful silence. An older girl with the air of someone who owned the room got to her feet. She was maybe 17, dark-skinned, short-haired, with eyes like a cat's. She looked at the line of first years. She looked at length at Harry. "Potter," she said, "I'm Gemma Farley, head girl for our house. Welcome to Slytherin." She paused. "I'm going to say something, and I'd like you to listen to all of it and not answer it until you have. Will you do that?" "Yes, we have been told for 10 years that you were dead." Some of us believed it, some of us didn't. Those of us who didn't were not always the respectable ones. There are people in this house and in this school whose parents are in prison because of you. There are people also whose parents are in prison who will be delighted you are here because you represent something they are in the most charitable reading unresolved about. What I am asking you is simple. Not loyalty, not even friendship. Only 2 things. First, do not walk into ambushes. If someone you do not know asks you to come with them somewhere quiet, come and find me. Second, do not embarrass us. Harry smiled. "I don't intend to embarrass anyone who doesn't deserve it." "Good," said Gemma. "Draco, show him his dormitory. Everyone else, bed. Classes start at 9. That was how Slytherin welcomed Harry Potter, formally, competently, and with an expectation that he would repay the courtesy in kind. He did. The first week he was a student. He kept his head down. He learned in 5 days the pace of every teacher, the positioning of every portrait in his most traveled corridors, and the 3 shortest routes from the Slytherin dungeons to the hospital wing. He wrote home to his father using an ordinary school owl, a letter so boring it read like a letter from someone else's son. In the letter he described his classes, his uniform, the quality of the pudding. Between the lines, in a cipher the 2 of them had invented together on a long car journey 2 summers ago, he described Quirrell's turban, the exact position of Snape's limp, the weight of Dumbledore's attention. The Joker wrote back on the 3rd day. His letter read in its entirety, "My boy, you have been missed. Keep your head. Do not under any circumstance burn down the castle. It is a very nice castle. Tuesday sends her love. She has bitten the postman. I did not ask her to, Dad. P.S. Tell me about the potions master." Harry smiled over breakfast and folded the letter carefully and put it into the inner pocket of his robes, where it stayed, warm against his ribs. Charms was a pleasure. Professor Flitwick was small and fierce and kind, and he taught magic the way a conductor teaches an orchestra, by making the simple things sing. Harry, who had not been able to tell his father what magic felt like until he had begun to practice it, found in Flitwick's classroom that he could describe it, finally. It was a muscle he had not known he had. He watched the light come into his wand on the first day when he was trying to lift a feather, and the feather rose easily, and Flitwick, beaming, put 10 points on Slytherin. Hermione Granger across the classroom looked at him, not jealous, Harry observed, but assessing, and returned to her own feather, which also rose. Harry smiled to himself. Good, he thought. A rival is better than an admirer any day. Transfiguration was harder. McGonagall ran her class the way she ran her hallway, with an unsparing, exact authority, and transfiguration, Harry found, was the one kind of magic he could not charm into compliance. You could not flatter a beetle into being a button. You had to know in your bones what a beetle was and what a button was, and the narrow strip of possibility between them, and you had to believe it for as long as the spell took. Harry, who had been taught by his father that belief was a matter of decision rather than feeling, got better at it quickly. But he did not get best. He was in that classroom, competent and no more, and he filed the lesson. There were laws in this world that would not bend for him, and he would do well to know which. McGonagall watched him work. Once, when he had successfully turned a match into a needle on his third attempt, she paused at his desk. You are not your father at this, Potter. No, ma'am. Your mother's gift. Harry, who had never been told this before, had to look at his match for a moment. Thank you, he said. She moved on. Potions was war. Snape swept into his classroom on Friday morning with the air of a man entering a dueling chamber. He did not begin the class as a teacher begins a class. He began as a prosecutor begins a trial. He called the roll, and when he reached Potter, Harry, our new celebrity, the word celebrity came out of his mouth with such disgust that 2 Slytherins flinched. Harry, who had spent a week preparing for this, did not flinch. Potter, said Snape. What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? A very potent sleeping potion, sir. The draught of living death. There was a pause. Where would you find me a bezoar? The stomach of a goat, sir. Snape's eyes did not leave Harry's face. What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane? There is no difference, sir. They are the same plant, also known as aconite. The room had gone still. Snape, behind his desk, had gone still. Harry, at his own desk, had answered in the clear, polite, unruffled tone of a boy who was answering questions he had known the answers to for a year. Hermione Granger, 2 tables away, had slowly lowered her hand, which nobody had called on. Snape, for the smallest fraction of a second, did something with his face that Harry read as recalibration. 5 points from Slytherin, said Snape, for being smug. 2 Slytherins made a sound. It is, said Snape, before any of them could object, the first lesson I am going to teach your house this year. The lesson is this: when one has the answer, one does not always give it. One holds it, one waits. One gives the answer eventually only when it is useful to have given it. If you walk into your career, Mr. Potter, giving every answer the moment you are asked, you will not have a long career. Do I make myself understood? Harry inclined his head. Yes, sir. 10 points to Slytherin for brevity. He had given back twice what he had taken. Harry kept his face composed. The rest of the class relaxed infinitesimally. Snape had, in his way, drawn a line in the dungeon. The Potter boy would be dealt with. The Potter boy was interesting enough to be dealt with. The lesson began. Snape cornered him after class. He let the other students file out. He stood in the space between his desk and the door. He waited until Harry had packed his books. Potter, a word. Harry stayed behind. He stood 2 paces from Snape. He set his bag down. You know, said Snape in a voice like a knife on a strop, that I knew your mother. Yes, sir. I imagine someone has told you in your unusual upbringing what I felt for her. Yes, sir. I've had a long time to think about it, sir. And what, Mr. Potter, have you thought? Harry, who had been preparing for this conversation for longer than Snape would have believed, looked at the potion's master. He looked at the line of the man's mouth, the shape of his hands on the desk, the way his eyes were not quite steady. He took, because it was what his father had taught him to take, a breath. I think, he said gently, that you loved her more than you have ever told anyone. I think that you loved her badly once, in ways you are ashamed of. I think that you have been trying to love her better ever since. From a distance, she can no longer close. I think that you look at me and you want to see her and you want not to see her, and you hate my father for coming between you, and you hate that hating him costs you a piece of her. I think you are a brave man, sir, and a difficult one, and that you think that you are alone in this castle, and that on any given day you are almost right. Snape did not breathe. I'm sorry, sir, Harry went on, not moving, if that is too forward. Dad taught me not to say anything I hadn't thought about for a long time. I've been thinking about you for a long time. I think if she could know that she would want you to have been kinder to yourself. She would not have liked to be a wound you carried. He stopped, he picked up his bag. Have a good afternoon, sir. He walked out. In the dungeon behind him, Severus Snape stood alone in his empty classroom with his hands flat on his desk, and he did not move for a long time, as if something very old had put a hand on his chest. When at last he looked up, his face was the face of a man who was filing something away for later, not for immediate use, not for action. only for the long, slow disassembly that would now have to go on inside him, unseen, for some months. By the end of that day, every other teacher in the school had been told, in one form or another, by one house or another, that the Potter boy was not what they had been told to expect. Dumbledore sent for him on the Wednesday of the second week. Harry went. He went alone. He climbed the moving staircase up to the gargoyle. Gemma had told him the password that morning, sherbet lemon, which Harry filed under information too cute to be accidental, and he let himself into the headmaster's office. Dumbledore was standing behind his desk, holding a silver instrument, which he set down when Harry came in. "Ah," he said, "Mr. Potter, welcome." "Thank you, sir. Please, sit." Harry sat. He did not look at the silver instruments. He did not look at the portraits. He did not look at the sleeping phoenix on its perch, whose eyes he had registered were not quite closed. He looked at Dumbledore, and Dumbledore looked at him, and for 20 minutes the two of them conducted a conversation that was, on the surface, about Harry's classes, and under the surface, about everything else. "Dumbledore, how are you finding Hogwarts?" "Harry, it has exceeded my hopes, sir. My father has been at some pains to prepare me." "Dumbledore, your father?" "Harry, yes, sir." "Dumbledore, I have been given to understand that the man who raised you is not a relative." "Harry, no, sir." "Dumbledore, may I ask how he came to care for you?" "Harry, he found me before others could. I was small. It would not, I think, have been a good outcome for me had others found me first. I understand that you had intentions regarding my placement." Dumbledore inclined his head. "I had a sister of your mother's in mind." "I know, sir, Petunia Dursley. She would have worked me hard and loved me little and kept me thin. She would not have known how to teach me what I am." Harry kept his voice soft. "My father taught me what I am, sir, whatever else he has done." "And what, Mr. Potter," said Dumbledore, looking at him over the half-moon spectacles, "do you believe he has done?" "Oh, sir," said Harry, smiling, "I should hate to speculate. We speculate so often, don't we, about the adults who raise us. Usually we are wrong." Dumbledore took a slow breath. "I would like," he said, "to see you safe, Harry." "I am safe, sir. I would like to be certain of that." "That is kind of you, sir. And I understand, sir, that from where you sit, a man you cannot read in a caravan in Devon is not a safe custodian for a boy the wizarding world has been told is dead." "I understand. If I were you, I would be anxious also. I can tell you plainly that my father has never raised his hand to me." Harry paused. He leaned forward very slightly and he said quietly, respectfully, "He has raised his hand on occasion to others who threatened me. If that is what concerns you, sir, I can only tell you that I am at peace with it, and I am not yours to place. Not anyway without my consent. I should like to remain a student, sir, no more, no less. I would rather not be a ward of anyone." Dumbledore looked at him for a long time. "I cannot force you," he said. "I have no legal means." "Your parents did not contemplate this?" "No, sir, it didn't." "May I ask you one question, Harry, truthfully?" "Yes, sir. Are you happy?" Harry, who had not been asked this question by anyone but his father in 10 years, did something with his eyes that Dumbledore would remember for a long time. "Yes, sir," he said. "I am." Dumbledore's hands came together on the desk. "Thank you for coming to see me, Mr. Potter. My door is open. I hope that over the course of your time here you will walk through it on your own initiative, and often." "I hope so too, sir." Harry walked out of the office without another glance at the silver instruments, at the portraits, at the phoenix. On the spiral staircase on the way down, he let himself, for the first time that day, breathe. 2 steps into the corridor, he met Severus Snape. Snape was coming up. Snape stopped. They looked at each other in the gloom. "Potter, sir, you were not polite to the headmaster." "I was, sir, a beat." "You are impossible," said Snape tonelessly, and swept past. Harry smiled a small smile at the back of the potions master's black robes and went down to the dungeons. Halloween came. Halloween was not a day Harry had ever celebrated. His father had not known it was his day, not precisely, until Harry had been 6, and when he had worked it out, he had decided, on principle, to celebrate every other day of the year instead. Harry did not know, before his first Hogwarts Halloween, that he could enjoy the date as itself. It turned out he could not. He spent the morning politely not thinking about his parents. The feast, at least, was excellent. The feast was interrupted at 7:10 by Professor Quirrell running into the great hall with his turban askew and one hand pressed to his mouth, shrieking about a troll in the dungeons and fainting on the floor at Dumbledore's feet. Harry watched the fainting. He did not believe it. He watched, in particular, the way Quirrell's head hit the flagstone. The angle was wrong. A fainting man went down loose. This man had fallen in 2 distinct stages, and he watched, also, the way Snape rose from his seat the instant the word troll came out and did not go to Quirrell. Snape went to the 3rd floor. Harry filed all of this. He stood up with the rest of Slytherin and followed Gemma farly down to the dungeons, because the dungeons were, in fact, not where the troll was, since the troll had been announced by a man who had put himself a very long way from the dungeons on purpose, and somewhere on the way he said, conversationally, to Gemma, "Do you know where the girls' toilets on the second floor are?" "Why, the Granger girl isn't at the feast." Gemma looked at him. And I think we should swing past." Gemma, who had a great many talents, one of which was knowing when to argue and when not to, did not argue. They detached Harry from the body of Slytherin first years. Draco raised an eyebrow. Harry, on the way past, said, "Back in 5, and she and Harry went up. The troll was by the time they arrived in the toilet." Gemma swore. Harry did not. He looked into the room, past the splintered door, and saw a troll, 12 feet tall, low forehead, club the size of a small car. Hermione Granger pressed against a sink at the far wall, her eyes gone white at the edges, 1 or 2 shards of sink on the floor, and overhead a large iron chandelier hung from a chain. "Keep it busy," said Harry. "Potter, 10 seconds, Gemma." He stepped into the room. He raised his wand. "Oi," he said in a clear, carrying, genuinely friendly voice. "Ugly." The troll turned. "Wingardium Leviosa," said Harry, and pointed his wand not at the troll but at the chandelier, and the chandelier lifted off its chain, which he had severed with a small gesture of his other hand, a trick his father had shown him with a paper clip and a nail that now seemed extremely useful, and swung very slightly into a pendulum. "Gemma, now." Gemma, who had not been given exact instructions, nevertheless understood. She cast something fast and hard and low. Harry recognized it as a near reverser, and the troll's left knee, which had been about to take a step, reversed. The troll staggered into the path of the chandelier. The chandelier at the crucial moment stopped being a pendulum and became a hammer. 600 pounds of iron on Harry's release charm came straight down on the troll's head. The troll did not get up. Hermione at the far wall had not moved. Harry crossed the room. He crouched in front of her. He put his wand away. He held out a hand. She took it. He pulled her to her feet. "You're all right," he said. "You're going to be all right. I'm going to walk you to the hospital wing now. If you feel faint, you tell me. Don't be brave. Brave is boring." She made a small sound that was almost a laugh. Gemma Farley stood in the doorway looking at the troll, at the chandelier, at the first-year boy crouched next to the sobbing Gryffindor. She shook her head. "Snape is going to kill you, Potter. Snape is going to give us 40 points, Gemma, if you tell the story correctly." She did tell the story correctly. He got 30. Hermione, who it turned out had been hiding from herself as much as the troll, got a private word with McGonagall and an unspoken truce with Harry Potter that would, over the rest of that year, become something very nearly friendship. The rest of the term moved fast. Flying lessons. Harry took to a broom the way an eel takes to water, because he had been taught at 9 to walk between 2 high-rise windows on a tightrope his father had strung for a game, and compared to that a broom felt like cheating. Madame Hooch, watching him loop, did a thing with her eyebrows that Harry recognized as her own filing away. Quidditch. Harry was not recruited because first-years were not usually recruited, and Harry, asked by a Slytherin chaser to try out anyway, declined politely. Next year, perhaps. He did not want to be the boy who lived who played seeker. He wanted to be, for 1 year, the boy who was watched with quiet dread by the people who knew to dread him. Snape. They had, after the first week, a running private war. Snape deducted points. Harry made them back in Flitwick. Snape gave him detentions. Harry served them immaculately and politely and quoted Shakespeare at him on the way out. Once, after a particularly bad class, Snape muttered in Harry's hearing, "Insufferable," and Harry, packing his bag, said without looking up, "Thank you, sir." Dumbledore did not send for him again, watched from a middle distance. Sent in a plain envelope at Christmas, a small edition of Marcus Aurelius with a note that said only, "A headmaster's discretion." Harry read it in one night, and on his next visit to the library picked up a second copy and sent it to his father with the note, "For balance." His father at Christmas sent him a jumper. It was green. It had a yellow question mark knitted across the front, off-center, crooked. Harry wore it on Christmas Day over his uniform. Pansy Parkinson, passing him in the common room, stopped and looked at it. "What?" she said. "It's a question mark." "I can see that. My dad knit it." Pansy, who had been told by her mother that Harry Potter's dad was a deranged vagrant and a danger to children, looked at the question mark and looked at Harry and could not, in the moment, find a way to reconcile the two things. "It's a nice color," she said, finally. "Thank you, Pansy." On Christmas night he found the mirror. He was out of bed because he could never sleep on Christmas. His father had taught him to be a little superstitious about Christmas Eve, a holdover from some childhood even he would not narrate, and he was walking the castle at 3 in the morning in the green jumper and socks when he pushed open a door he had been pushing open, at irregular intervals, for a month, because it opened on a disused classroom, and in the disused classroom there had until yesterday been nothing. Tonight there was a mirror. A tall mirror standing upright in a gilt frame, with an inscription along the top in script too fine to read from the door. Harry stepped into the room. He approached the mirror slowly. He was 11 and tired and out of his dormitory at 3 in the morning, and he was also his father's son, and so he stopped 3 paces short of it, because his father had taught him that mirrors, like men, were rarely only what they showed. He looked, he saw himself. He saw himself taller than he was, with longer arms and a different robe, and he saw, at his left shoulder, a woman with a face he had only ever seen in a small photograph his father had stolen for him in his 8th year. And he saw at his right shoulder a man with green hair and no grease paint, in an ordinary suit, laughing not his usual laugh but an ordinary father's laugh. All 3 of them were looking at him. All 3 of them were alive. Harry did not look away. He stood for a long time. He had been taught in various ways to recognize a trap. This was a trap. It was a trap of exquisite, cruel specificity. He could feel the pull of it. He could feel the part of him that wanted to sit down in front of it and stay there until he died. He could feel underneath that a colder part of him, the part his father had been cultivating for 10 years, patiently, cheerfully, saying, "Yes, dear, but then what?" He walked very deliberately backward. He did not turn his back on the mirror until the door was under his hand. He kept his eyes on the reflection until the door had closed between them. He stood in the corridor with his back against the wood and breathed until the breathing was steady. "Thank you, whoever put that there," he said to the empty hallway. "I needed to know what it felt like." He went back to bed. He did not, for the rest of the year, return to that room. He did not have to. The term rolled on, winter thawed. The stone, by slow degrees, became a puzzle Harry had to solve. He had worked out by the 2nd week that Fluffy was guarding something, by the 3rd week, that the something was probably beneath the Gringotts parcel Hagrid had carried on his and Harry's own visit in August, and by February, that Quirrell was the one who wanted it. It was not one observation, but many. It was the way Quirrell's stammer failed him when he was alone in a corridor. It was the way he looked at the high table at dinner at Snape with a small, thin hatred. It was the way Hagrid, that week at the end of April, had let slip, to Harry's very careful and perfectly neutral face, that he had told a stranger in a pub how to get past his 3-headed dog, but it was all right, because the stranger had only been interested in dragons. Harry did not take his deductions to a teacher. He did not take them even to Gemma. He took them to his own head, where they piled up quietly, like coins in a tin, and he waited. He knew a good trap when he saw one. He also knew what his father had taught him, which was that sometimes you walked into a trap because the walk was the point. By the end of June, the stone was about to move. Harry could tell. Quirrell had grown paler, his stammer had flickered on and off in class, Snape had gone, overnight, from vexed to frankly murderous. Dumbledore, on the Wednesday of the last week of term, had been summoned to London on an emergency ministry matter that smelled, to anyone paying attention, exactly like bait. Harry, eating his breakfast that morning, paid attention. He glanced up the table at Draco, who raised an eyebrow. "Going for a walk later," Harry said quietly. "Want company." "Thank you, though, this is one I take alone." Draco, who had by then learned not to argue with certain of Harry's tones, nodded once. He looked at his kipper. "Don't die, Potter. I'll try." He did not invite Ron, he did not invite Hermione. He liked them both. He had, by the end of that year, eaten lunch with them in the library more times than he had eaten lunch with his own house, to the rueful amusement of the Slytherin table. But he was not a boy who walked into traps in threes. He was his father's son. He was a boy who walked into traps alone, with a plan and a backup plan, and a wand in his pocket whose twin was somewhere in a Turkish turban. He waited until an hour after dinner. He put on the green jumper. He left the common room by the short stair. He went to the 3rd floor. He was there at the corridor at 9:10. Fluffy was snoring. Somebody somewhere had been playing a harp. The trapdoor was open. The devil's snare below had been burned at the center, the scorch mark still smoking in a wet star. Whoever had gone down before him, Quirrell, Harry thought, and his mouth set, had gone through. Harry jumped. He landed softer than he had expected. Clean boots. He drew his wand. He moved fast. The key chamber took him 1 minute. His father had taught him that any problem with 300 keys was actually a problem with 1 key, and you only had to slow the other 299 down long enough to count. He handled the giant chess set by not playing it. He walked along the wall at the room's edge, because the pieces were programmed to respond to the center of the board, and the center was not, he knew, the only way across a room. The troll in the next chamber was already unconscious, courtesy of whoever had come first. Snape's potion riddle. Harry laughed out loud at it. He solved it in under a minute. He drank the correct bottle, and the last door became transparent. He stepped through. The mirror room, lit silver, opened before him. At the far end, facing the mirror, stood Quirinus Quirrell. His turban was already off. The back of his head was wrong. Harry closed the door behind him. "Hello, Professor," he said. Quirrell turned. Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. Kindred Spirits. Quirinus Quirrell turned, and Harry Potter, aged 11, saw the face of a man who had put his soul on a loan and the interest on it in his scalp. The turban lay on the stone floor like a shed skin. The back of Quirrell's head was the front of another man. The face that had been living there had a nose that wasn't quite a nose, skin the color of chalk that had been breathed on, and eyes like unlit candles. Voldemort, when those eyes fixed on Harry, made a sound that was more exhale than word. The boy. Harry did not bow, he did not raise his wand. He inclined his head half an inch in the polite register his father had called the headwaiter's nod and said, "Professor," and Professor's associate. "Good evening." Quirrell drew his own wand. "Do not move, Potter." "I'm not moving, sir. I'm standing perfectly still. I'm being wonderfully still." Voldemort's mouth did the shape of a word. "Talk," he breathed. "Oh," Harry said. He took one step forward, just one. His shoe made a small, clean sound on the flagstone. "Oh, I'm going to talk. Don't worry. Dad says I'm unsufferable on the subject of talking. Do you mind if I pace? I find a good pace sharpens me up." "Stand still," said Quirrell, whose voice, without the stammer, had gone into a higher register than Harry had expected. The stammer had not, Harry realized, been a cover for stupidity. It had been a cover for the rhythm of another man's breath inside his throat. Harry paced. "So," he said, "here we are, the mirror room, very atmospheric. I compliment the headmaster's dramaturgy. A lesser villain would have been tempted to bring down the lighting, a better villain would have asked for a little dry ice. Yours truly," he indicated Voldemort with an open hand, "has gone for classical understatement. Admirable. Dad will be jealous. He rarely meets a man who trusts silence." "Be silent, boy. I am being loud. It's a different trade." Harry tapped his chin with his wandless hand. "Let me see if I have this right. I don't want to misquote anyone. You, Voldemort, lost a body 11 years ago in a house where, incidentally, you did not ask permission to come in. You have spent 11 years as a vapor with an opinion. You have now acquired, how shall I put it delicately, a rental. Is it week to week? I hope you got a fair price. The back of a head is not the premium of real estate. Location, I suppose." Quirrell's wand was trembling. Voldemort made the sound again. "Closer, closer, my little dead man. Let me see those eyes." Harry took a second step. He was not afraid. He noticed he was not afraid and filed the observation. His father had prepared him against a great many specific situations, and the unexpected dividend was a general disinclination to panic. Panic, his father had told him, was an adult's job. "You are a boy. Leave panic to your employer." "I'll come closer happily," Harry said, "if Professor Quirrell will put down his wand for a moment. I'd hate to be cursed on approach. It sets a bad tone for a conversation." Voldemort laughed. It was a thin old sound. "He amuses me," said the voice behind the scalp. "Let him near." Quirrell, lower the wand. Quirrell hesitated. The hand holding the wand twitched. For a fraction of a moment, Harry read the man inside the man, the terror, the jealousy, the thrashing of a human being who had decided, somewhere on the way, to take a passenger, and had discovered that his passenger was driving. Harry felt faintly sorry for him. The wand lowered an inch. Harry took 3 more steps. "Better," he said. He was now 4 paces from Quirrell and the mirror both. He angled his body so that if he ducked under Quirrell's left, he could be behind the man in a second and a half. He had measured it on the way in. He measured it again. "So, the stone, you want the stone. You want the stone because you want a body, and you want a body because you want, well, the whole usual menu, I'm sure. Rule the world, kill the muggles, put us all in numbered robes, nothing personal, just industry." "Do not," Voldemort whispered, "presume." "I do presume," Harry said. "I presume professionally. It's a Potter trait, you may remember." Quirrell drew a breath. "You are not afraid of me, boy." Why, my dad," said Harry with a small, easy smile, "is a worse man than you on a tired day, sir, and he loves me. It has been very hard to be scared of other villains afterwards. Everything else is a matinee." Voldemort made the laugh again. His lipless mouth was doing something that could have been delight if delight had ever been an available color for him. "Clever boy, thank you. A pity. Yes, that's what they all tell me." "Look," said Voldemort, into the mirror. The mirror stood where it had stood on Christmas night, and its frame was the same, and the inscription along the top was the same, and the reflection in it was not. Harry looked. He saw himself in the silver. He saw only himself. No mother this time, no father. Only a slight, tall, dark-haired boy in a green jumper holding a wand with a scar like a crack in a teacup. The boy in the glass put a hand into his pocket. Harry felt the boy put a hand into his pocket. The boy in the glass pulled out a small red stone the size of a plum and held it up for the boy outside to see, and smiled a small private smile, and then slipped the stone into the pocket of his jumper, and the pocket of Harry's jumper sagged very slightly with the weight. Harry did not change his expression. He said, "Pretty mirror, what do you see?" Harry turned back to Voldemort with his hands empty and loose at his sides. "I see myself," he said truthfully. I see myself winning a chess game against my dad. I'm 12 in the mirror. I'm about to be 9 years old of this plane in 3 months. I've never beaten him at chess. The thing I want most in the world, Professor, is to beat my dad at chess. I know, it's banal. He smiled apologetically. I'm sorry. I wish it was grander. We take our desires as they come, Voldemort hissed. He is lying. He is not lying. He has the stone. I can smell it. The mirror has given it up. Mirrors can be unreliable, sir. They show sometimes what they want to show. You know, you of all people know how easily we read what we want to read into a piece of glass. Quirrell's wand rose again. Empty your pockets, Potter, Harry sighed. I have, he said, reaching into his left pocket with 2 fingers in the careful, wide, non-threatening way his father had taught him. 3 things in my pockets. You are going to hate all of them. May I? Quirrell's wand did not lower. Harry brought his hand out. He had in his palm a handkerchief, a small folded piece of parchment that was the last letter from his father, and because his father had at 9 taught him the value of a pointless wonder in a tight spot, a wind-up, brass-footed, chattering-toothed toy with a red felt tongue which his father had given him as an 8-year-old and which Harry had never gone to school without. He set the chattering teeth on the flagstone. He pressed the key in the top with his thumb. He wound them once, twice, 3 times. He let go. The teeth chattered across the floor in the direction of Quirrell's boots. Quirrell looked down at them. Involuntary, half a second, the wand followed the chin. It was all the time Harry had planned for. Flipendo, he said. The knockback jinx was a first-year spell. Harry had learned it in the 3rd week of term. He had learned it from a textbook. He had practiced it on a padded training dummy in the Charms classroom and on the stump of a tree behind Hagrid's hut and on a hat he had placed on a fence post in the paddock. He had practiced it 54 times, and on each of the last 12 practice casts he had whispered under his breath the private secondary intention his father had taught him to braid into a spell if he wanted the spell to hit the way he wanted it to hit, which was not the way the book described. The book said knockback. Harry's flipendo threw Quirrell backward as if a horse had kicked him in the sternum. The man crashed into the plinth of the mirror so hard that the frame shook. His wand clattered away across the flagstones. The chattering teeth, Mary, went on chattering toward them both. Voldemort shrieked. Fool boy, my curse. Quirrell surged back up onto his feet. His right arm was hanging wrong. His eyes had gone to the place Voldemort looked from, which was a place behind themselves now, and as he came at Harry with his left hand outstretched, not a wand, a hand, fingers curled, Harry realized, a beat late, that Voldemort was telling Quirrell to touch him. Harry moved. He went left. He went under. He came up beneath Quirrell's extended reach and drove the flat of his own palm up into the man's jaw. It hurt Harry's wrist. It didn't hurt him enough to matter. Quirrell snapped back and down. Harry, who had been taught to follow a fist with a knee and a knee with a word, followed the fist with a knee and the knee with a word. Lumos Maxima. The wand in his hand blazed like a small sun. Quirrell, already blinking, screamed. He brought his right hand up, his bad arm, to shield his eyes. Voldemort, on the back of Quirrell's head, had no shielding available. The light went through the wraith in Quirrell's skin as if through a muslin sheet, and Voldemort made, for the first time, a sound that was not commanding or hungry or proud. He made the sound of a thing that had briefly, for the first time in decades, lost control of the room. Harry lowered the light. He did not drop it. He set the wand against the stone at his feet, tip up, like a small lamp, and he walked forward without his wand into the fading afterimage of Lumos. He walked forward because his father had taught him that if you had set a man on fire, you should walk into the flames, not away from them, because the fire was the bodyguard. Quirrell, half-blinded, swung at him. Harry stepped inside the swing. He was 11. He was small. He had his whole life been small, and his father had taught him how to be small in a fight in a way that mattered. He went low. He took Quirrell by the back of the neck with his left hand. He let Quirrell's own forward momentum carry the man down. Quirrell's temple met the floor. The chattering teeth, still chattering, collided with his foot. Harry picked his wand up. He stood over Quirrell. Quirrell was shaking. No, Quirrell was smoking. The skin of his hands, where he had been about to grab Harry, had begun to smoke, fine black tendrils rising off the pads of his fingers. Harry looked at his own skin. Nothing. He frowned. He looked back at Quirrell. Oh, Harry said softly. Oh, that's interesting. Touch me, do see what happens. Voldemort's scream from Quirrell's skull doubled. Kill him now, you must. Quirrell, smoke pouring off him in thin ribbons now, launched himself up, a last push. He got both hands on Harry's throat. He held on for 3 seconds. They were the longest 3 seconds of both their lives. Harry, under the pressure, felt the thing his father had not been able to teach him. He felt what his mother had left him. It was a warmth. It was not a warmth like a fire. It was a warmth like a greenhouse in the winter, like the inside of a held hand, like something that had been set to smolder on the 1st of November 1981 and had never gone out. The warmth went up his spine and along both his arms and through his palms and into Quirrell's wrists. Quirrell's wrists turned to ash where they touched him. Quirrell screamed. The grip around Harry's throat fell away. Both of the man's arms, from the elbow down, were unmaking. The scream became, by fractions, the shape of a man realizing. Harry, who had a choice in that second, a choice he had understood was coming since he had watched his father close a door over a man in an alley when he was 9, made it. He did not pull away. He drove his own small hand flat against Quirrell's chest. He pushed. He felt Quirrell disassemble under his palm. He let his mother's gift do what it was doing, and he let his father's training do what it was doing, and the two of them went through Quirrell like a tide. Quirrell fell. What was left of him was on the floor. Above what was left of him, a thin smoke rose, coalesced into the shape of a head, opened its eyes, and hated Harry Potter. Harry, who was bleeding now from the nose and from a cut on his forehead he did not remember getting, looked up at the smoke. "Go on," he said. The wraith hovered. "Go where, boy? Anywhere, I don't care. Go and find a better body. Try one of your friends in Azkaban. I'll see them soon." Harry's voice had thickened. He sounded, for the first time in the scene, like a boy. His wand hand was shaking. He steadied it. He said to the wraith, in a voice that was less his father's voice than the wraith had been expecting, "You came for me in my mother's arms when I was a baby. You came tonight for me at 11. You come again when I am 15 or 20 or 30, Tom." He used the name he had read with Hermione last February in a book with a locked library spine. "You come again, Tom Riddle, and I will do to you what you just saw me do to your driver, and I will do it slower. Tell your friends, tell everyone, the boy is not what they ordered." The wraith made a sound. Then, because a wraith is a small, starved, practical thing, it rose through the ceiling of the mirror room and was gone. Harry stood for a moment over what was left of Quirrell. Then he sat down, very suddenly, onto the flagstone. The last thing he saw before the world went gray at the edges was the small red stone in the pocket of his jumper, which had been there the whole time, and which he pressed his palm over gently, as a man presses his palm over a sleeping cat. He did not die. He had been told later that he had come close. The stone had, according to Dumbledore, not protected him. The stone did not work that way, but some combination of Lily Potter's old magic and his own first-year stamina, and somewhat surprisingly, a thread of residual pride too stubborn to let him expire on a floor in a castle where Slytherin had not yet won the cup, had kept him breathing until Dumbledore had arrived. Dumbledore had arrived at 9:10. Dumbledore had flown in from London in a way that, privately, even the headmaster did not admit to himself had been faster than a man of his age should have been capable of flying. Dumbledore had carried Harry up to the hospital wing himself. Harry woke on the 3rd day. It was the 3rd day because his father had told him that 3 days was a good number of days to be in a coma, if you must be in a coma, because it was biblically resonant and it gave your enemies time to make mistakes. Harry had not planned to be in a coma. He had, as usual, been prepared. Dumbledore was sitting by the bed. "Ah," said Dumbledore, and his voice was very quiet. "Mr. Potter, headmaster, I have been here some time. I am sorry to have kept you." Dumbledore, on the uncomfortable bedside chair, smiled. The smile was tired. "Madame Pomfrey is fetching you a tea. You have 10 minutes before she returns and throws me out. I will spend those minutes, if you will allow it, asking you 3 questions. Yes, sir. 1. Did you retrieve the stone from the mirror? Yes, sir. 2. Where is it now? In my jumper, sir. 3rd drawer of the bedside cabinet. I put it there when I woke up the first time." Dumbledore closed his eyes. "You woke up already and did not tell us. I wanted to place the stone first, sir. I did not want anyone else to have to know where it was." 3, said Dumbledore, opening his eyes. "Did you want the stone?" Harry considered this. "No, sir," he said. "I wanted to keep him from having it. The mirror only gives the stone to someone who wants to find it but does not want to use it. I was able to take it because I had no plans for it. Tell me what the mirror showed you." "Me and my dad playing chess. I was winning." Dumbledore, who had been holding very still, did something with his shoulders that might have been the shape of a breath. "Mr. Potter." "Yes, sir." "You are an unusual child." "Yes, sir." "May I speak plainly with you once, Harry?" "I would prefer you to, sir." Dumbledore leaned forward. His hands rested on his knees. His eyes did not leave Harry's. "The man who raised you is a dangerous man. He is unpredictable. He lives outside of the rule of law. He has, in the last 10 years, killed several people whom my Department of Horrors, had they the time and the names, would have arrested him for. I know this. You know this. I am telling you I know it so that you will understand that I am offering what I am about to offer with my eyes open. Go on, sir." "I am prepared," said Dumbledore, "to do any of 3 things. I am prepared to take legal action to remove you from his custody. I am prepared to petition the Wisengamot to declare him a hostile party and your legal guardianship forfeit. I am prepared to name a family, any family you wish, as your placement. The Weasleys, the Longbottoms, my brother Aberforth, who is not perhaps the picture of stability, but who has a spare room and a goat. I will do this, Mr. Potter, if you will ask me to. I will do it this week. You will not be prosecuted for what you did tonight. You will be protected. Your father, if he is wise, will disappear, and if I don't ask you to, sir, Dumbledore spread his hands a fraction, then I will not. I have been persuaded over this term, Mr. Potter, that you are not an ordinary child, and that you know what you are choosing, and that a headmaster who removes a child against the child's own clear will is a headmaster who has decided to become his enemy's enemy before he has understood whose enemy to be. Harry looked at him for a long moment. Thank you, sir, your answer. Number, Mr. Potter, sir, he is my father, I know what he is, he knows what I am, we have an understanding. Harry allowed himself a small smile. He will not, sir, kill me, it is much too early in the run. Dumbledore did something that was very nearly a laugh. Is that a Potter joke or a Jack joke? A mine, sir. Dumbledore let out a breath. Very well, he said, very well. He leaned back. He looked at the window where the last of the afternoon was going brass. I will confess, relieved, Mr. Potter, because I do not have the moral authority to take you against your will. I have spent a portion of this term preparing to find that authority within myself, and I have failed. I find, his voice was as dry as an old page, that having raised half a generation of children against their will, I have used up my allowance for the thing. Yes, sir, you will not tell anyone I said that. No, sir. I will expect you in my office the first Sunday of every month during your second year for tea, not business, tea. Yes, sir, and Mr. Potter, yes, sir. If you ever decide you would like to come down from the tightrope and stand on the ground for a week, you will come to me. You will not go to your father with that question. You will come to me. We will sit. You will have tea. You will have biscuits. You will leave afterward wherever you want. I will not hold you. I will not instruct you. I will not place you. I will be, his eyes on Harry's old, pale, not unkind, a man with biscuits. This much, Mr. Potter, I ask of you, this only. Harry, who had not cried all year, did not cry then, but a small thing in his throat did a thing. Yes, sir, he said. Thank you, sir. Good. Pomfrey came back with the tea. The end-of-year feast was, by a narrow margin, Slytherin's. Gemma Farley put the cup in the middle of the table and spoke a short, sensible, ungloating speech in which she thanked her house and did not once mention the boy at the end of the bench, because Harry had asked her not to. Harry had said quietly in the dungeon the night before, "The house won it. I won one thing, the house won the rest, don't let me take the rest." Gemma had looked at him and had not said yes and had not said no and had done it exactly as he asked. Snape came to the hospital wing once late on the last night before the train. Harry was packing. Snape stood in the doorway of the wing, which was empty. He did not come in. "Potter, sir, I am not going to thank you for what you did to Quirrell. No, sir. I will, however, observe that he had a great deal more of my kind of work planned for the summer than you will ever know about." "I understand, sir. I do not like you, Potter." "No, sir." Snape paused at the threshold. He looked briefly at Harry's face and at Lily's eyes in it, and at the question mark his mother had never knitted him and his father had. "I did not," Snape said, "hate her, if that was in question." "It was not, sir. Good night, Potter. Good night, Professor." Snape left. The train pulled out of Hogsmeade at 11 on the last day of term with a great sigh and a longer groan. Harry sat in a compartment with Ron and Hermione and Draco, who had been allowed on a private parley between Gryffindor and Slytherin first years, a temporary cross-house truce. Draco would eat with them on the last train. Draco would not tease Ron about the jam sandwich. They had played a brutal game of exploding snap in which Hermione had won, and they had argued about whether Flitwick was better than McGonagall, and they had watched the rain whip the windows, and they had, for one afternoon, been a sloppy sort of ordinary children. Harry got off at King's Cross at 4. He was looking, without appearing to look, for the charcoal suit. He did not see it. He did see, near the barrier, idling in the drop-off lane outside the station, a very long purple Rolls-Royce with a wrong license plate and an unlit cigarette in the driver's hand, and behind the wheel of the Rolls a man with carefully combed brown hair and no grease paint and a little too much smile. Harry trolleyed his trunk across the pavement. "Dad, evening, small person, bag, done, door, done, dog, in the boot. Oh no, she's on your seat, she's been there for an hour, she missed you." Harry, who had opened the passenger door to find Tuesday on the seat with her chin on the gear shift, made a small sound that he would never let anyone hear again in his life. Tuesday jumped up. He crouched. She licked his face. Her tail was doing a thing that tails do when they don't know how to do what they are doing. He lifted her off the seat. He got in. He held her in his lap. The Joker put the Rolls into gear. "So," he said, pulling away from the curb, "tell Dad. It's a long drive. We have time." And they did, and Harry did, and they drove out of London in the late sun with a dog on his knees and a set of chattering brass teeth in his trunk and his father beside him singing, at first tentatively and then less so, a show tune from 1961 that Harry did not know but had always, in a way he could not explain, been going to learn. Chapter 5 and Chapter 6, Send in the Clowns. They spent the first week of summer in a jazz club. It was a basement in Soho with a ceiling so low the Joker had to duck coming down the stairs, and the walls were painted the color of stewed tea, and every night a trio with a piano and a double bass and a drummer so thin he looked shaved played until 2 in the morning to an audience of 23 regulars, and on the nights Harry was there, 24. The Joker had some arrangement with the owner that Harry did not ask about. Harry sat at a corner table with a ginger beer and a bowl of pickled onions, and he watched the room. "Tell me," said his father on the third night, leaning over the table, "what you see." Harry ate an onion. "The bassist is in love with the pianist," he said. "Yes, the pianist knows. The pianist is letting him hope. The pianist is not going to let it happen. The drummer is on something for his back that isn't working. He hasn't said. It's why he came in at the wrong bar in the second set. Very good. The 2 women at table 4 are sisters. They're here because their father died last month. They're pretending this is fun. It isn't. It will be, but not tonight. How do you know? The way they hold their glasses." His father was quiet for a moment. He regarded his son in the tea-colored light. He did not smile. He did not do any of his faces. He did a thing with his eyes that Harry had learned over 10 years to read as approval without celebration. "My boy." "Yes, Dad, you're very good." "Thank you, Dad." They stayed 3 more nights. They did not speak in the basement of Hogwarts or Voldemort or the Scar or the red stone that was now locked in a box on the headmaster's desk 600 miles north. The Joker was letting Harry decompress. He was letting him be, for 1 week, a child in a dim room listening to music. Harry understood this was what he was doing. He loved him for it. The second week they went to Marseille. The Joker had business in a market in the old port that was only a market on the second Saturday of the month, and which was reached through a door in an alley behind a grocer, and which sold, to those who knew to ask, books that had been banned in 4 countries and tools that had been stolen from the offices of bodies with initials, and which had that weekend a small stall at the back where a very old Bulgarian woman sold boxes of enchanted chess pieces that taunted their opponents in Slavic insults. The Joker bought Harry a set. "For next summer," he said. "You're going to beat me finally. Might as well have commentary." They walked on the Corniche at sunset. Harry had only ever been out of England twice in his life. He watched the lighthouse at the end of the breakwater and the shape of the Mediterranean under the cliffs and his father, leaning on the railing beside him with an unlit cigarette, and for half an hour he did not think about any of the things he had been preparing himself to think about. "Dad, yes, thank you for coming to get me. Of course, I know where you were. Where was I? In the car, parked, 400 yards from the school gates. You had been there 3 days. I saw the tire tracks when I went out with Draco to the forest." The Joker did not deny it. "I thought you might need a driver, small person." "I did," said Harry. "I'm very grateful you were there." "You're welcome." They watched the water. In the 3rd week, 3 Death Eaters found them. It was a petrol station in Kent at 9:30 in the evening on a night with a low moon. The Joker was inside paying for petrol and a pork pie. Harry was in the passenger seat of the Rolls with Tuesday on his lap. The 3 men came out of the darkness behind the forecourt the way wolves come out of a tree line, shoulders first, not hurrying. Robes underneath their muggle coats, masks in their pockets. Harry saw the first of them before the first of them saw Harry. He did not panic. He reached across with one hand and killed the dashboard light. He slid down in the seat. Tuesday, who had been briefed on this particular game for her whole life, slid down with him. She did not bark. He wound the window down 1 finger's width and listened. "Bloody muggle shops everywhere. Shut up. Do you see him?" "Not yet. He's got a child, remember. If the child is with him, we take the child. If the child is not with him, we take him. Don't cross that up." Harry on the floor of the Rolls breathed out. He was not, in that instant, 11. He was 11, and he was 4, and he was 7, and he was 9, and he was all of the ages he had ever been trained in, and they were all together in his chest at once, a crowd of small versions of himself with their sleeves rolled up. He reached into the glove compartment of the Rolls. He took out the small dark object his father had made him put there at the start of the summer, in case, small person of emergencies, and he weighed it in his palm. It was heavier than it looked. He opened the door of the Rolls very slowly. He got out on the side away from the men. He closed the door without a click. He put his back to the rear wheel well. Tuesday came with him. He told her without words to stay low. She stayed low. Inside the shop, the Joker had just set 2-pound coins on the counter. The first Death Eater reached the front corner of the Rolls. He paused. He raised his wand. Harry stepped out from behind the wheel well with the object in his hand and threw it. The object was a glass bottle. It had, at some point in its history, contained beer. The Joker had filled it with petrol from the tank of the Morris Minor last Tuesday, and had capped it with a strip of his own shirt, and he had handed it to Harry with the air of a man handing his son a first watch. Harry, over the week since, had carried it back and forth from the car to their various kitchens and out onto various lawns, and had, in between readings of Descartes and Agatha Christie, practiced the throw. He threw it underhand with a twist. It took the first Death Eater in the chest. The shirt strip, which was already lit, Harry had lit it with the tip of his wand on the way out of the door, ignited the petrol. The petrol ignited the man. The other two screamed. Harry ran, not away, along. He kept the rolls between himself and the other two. He shouted as he went, so they would know where he was and not where he would be, a single clear word: Dad. Inside, the Joker was already moving. The window of the shop blew outward, not in, because the Joker had, in the time between the breaking of the bottle and the first scream, done something with his elbow and the ornamental grill. The Joker came through the window like a rumor. He came through it laughing. He landed on the bonnet of the rolls and slid off the bonnet with the elegance of a man who had done a great deal of sliding off bonnets. And by the time he had reached the forecourt, the second Death Eater had turned from the burning man and had put up his wand. The Joker, who had not drawn any wand because he did not own any wand, hit the second Death Eater in the throat with his forearm on the way past. The Death Eater went down. The third, the one who had been giving the orders, fired. Harry, behind the rolls, saw the green come. He was behind 2 tons of car. He was fine. The green passed through the rear windshield and out the front windshield and took out the shop sign 30 feet away, and Harry thought very fast, the way his father had trained him to think fast, and came out from behind the car at waist height with his wand up. Stupefy, he said. It was not, by first-year standards, a remarkable spell. It was a clean stun. What made it interesting in that moment was that the third Death Eater had just completed a killing curse, and had expended in the completion of it the narrow attention that a wizard in a 3-on-1 fight must spend on every other wizard in the room, and so the stunner caught him in the chest a half-second before his replacement curse was ready, and he went down the way a statue goes down when its plinth gives, all at once. Harry kept running. He did not go to the first Death Eater. The first Death Eater was finishing. He went to the second. The second was still down, holding his throat. Harry crouched by his head. He took the man's wand, which had rolled 2 feet. It in his hands. The Joker came and stood over the Death Eater on the ground. "Who sent you?" he said pleasantly. The Death Eater tried to speak. "Breathe," said the Joker. "Catch your breath. I'll wait. I've got all night." The Death Eater got his breath back. He told them a name. He told them 2 names. He told them where they had been meeting. He told them the password. He told them the password again in case. "Lovely," said the Joker when he had finished. "Thank you." He looked at Harry. "Kiddo." "Dad, go and get in the car. Check on Tuesday. Don't look back." "Dad, go on, small person." Harry went. He got in the car. He held Tuesday on his lap, her whole warm weight against his stomach. He did not look back. He heard his father behind him doing something at the counter inside the shop, an apology perhaps, a pound coin left on a shelf, Harry did not know, and he heard his father coming back to the car, and he heard his father putting the keys in the ignition, and he felt his father start the rolls, and they drove. They drove for an hour without speaking. At the hour, at a lay-by on the A2, the Joker pulled over. He turned off the engine. He sat with both hands on the wheel. "Harry." "Yes, Dad, you killed a man tonight." Harry looked at him. "I know. I want you to know something." "Yes, Dad." "I wish," the Joker stopped. His hands on the wheel did a thing. "I wish you had been older, small person. I wish I had handled all 3. I would have liked for you to have been older before you had to throw the bottle." Harry, who had been waiting all his life for his father to be almost tender, did not make a joke of it. He nodded once. "I know, Dad. Are you all right?" "I'm not all right. I'm functional. I will be all right. You taught me how the line runs between those. I'll walk it." The Joker reached over. He put his hand for a moment on the back of Harry's neck. The hand was large and cool. Harry leaned into it half an inch. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, small person." He said it clean. He said it like a regular father. He said it without cackling, without any voice, without any bit. He said it the way he had said once at 5, "Yes, kiddo, she loved you." They both did. And then he started the rolls, and they drove on, and Tuesday, on Harry's lap, slept through the whole remainder of the night. Snape came 2 days later. They were on an island off the coast of Ireland, in a fisherman's hut on a cliff, and Harry was boiling water for tea when a dark-robed figure apparated, with a soft crack, onto the grass outside the door. The Joker, from the armchair he had been reading in, did not look up. "The potion's master," he said. "Kiddo, let him in." Harry opened the door. Severus Snape stood on the doorstep with his hair damp in the sea wind. Mr. Potter, Professor, may I come in, please? Snape came in. He stood in the small kitchen as if he had measured its dimensions and found them adequate for the conversation he had come to have. The Joker in the armchair turned a page of the book he was reading, which was Plato in translation. Mr. Snape paused. He looked at the Joker. He looked back at Harry. Mr. Potter. I am here in a capacity I do not, strictly speaking, have. I have come unauthorized. All right, I wish to speak to you about the man who raised you. Harry set 2 teacups on the counter. He did not look at his father. You may speak, Professor. I have spent most of this term watching you. I have formed, as a result, a number of conclusions. Some of them I have shared with the headmaster, some of them I have not. Snape's voice was dry, his eyes were not. I wish today to share one with you. The man who raised you is not a person in the usual sense. I have consulted certain sources. He has no record on any continent. He was not born on this island. He does not register to any of the detection charms that would identify a wizard, a squib, a muggle-born, a half-blood, a ghost, or a revenant. He is, for all I can tell, a thing that walked in from somewhere the maps do not include and decided for reasons of its own to raise you. Harry poured the water. Yes, Professor, Snape blinked. You know this. I have had 10 years to learn it. Does he? Yes, he knows what he is. I have known for some time that he knows. We do not say it to each other very often. It would be tedious. What is it that you came to tell me, Professor? That he is not human. I know. That he is dangerous. I know. That he loves me. You don't know that. I do. What was it? Snape, to his credit, did not answer for a moment. He took his teacup. He did not drink. He set it back on the counter. I came, he said, to offer you a place in my quarters at the castle for the remainder of your summers if you need it. Harry, who had not been expecting this, stopped pouring his own tea. He looked at the potion's master for a long beat. Thank you, Professor. I am not a pleasant man, Potter. I do not make pleasant conversation. I do not cook well. The company is not what yours is. But my door is closer than the headmaster's, and I do not keep silver instruments that watch my guests while they sleep. If at any point you require a place from which to think without— Snape glanced, for an instant, at the Joker, who had not lifted his eyes from Plato, without weather. Come. I will not ask you what you are thinking. I will not report you to anyone. I will make tea. It will be adequate. I will not speak unless spoken to. Harry looked at him. My mother, Harry said quietly, would have liked you better if you had loved your life. If she had known you now, Professor, she would have liked you very much. Snape did not move. It is her I am doing this for, he said. No, Professor, Harry said softly. It's you. You're doing it for you. It's a good thing to do. I accept. Snape took a long, careful breath. Thank you, Potter. Thank you, Professor. Snape left. He disapparated from the doorstep the way he had come. The Joker in the armchair turned another page. Plato, he said to no one in particular, had some good material. He also had some bad material. It is striking to me, kiddo, how many people forget the second thing. Yes, Dad, he is going to be a good friend to you. He is going to be a complicated friend to me. That is a good friend, small person. We do not trust the simple ones. The flu call came at the end of the month. They had moved again to a cottage in the Brecon Beacons, which the Joker had acquired for the summer by a combination of methods Harry did not ask about, and which had a flue connected by prior agreement to a fireplace in Hogsmeade. The fire was, in its own way, a courtesy. The Joker had left a single hearth connected at all times because he had told Harry, at the start of the summer, that Dumbledore was an old man who would want, at some point, to talk, and that it was kinder to leave him a door than to make him bang. The fire turned green on the 29th of July at 8:15 in the morning. The Joker was at the stove. He was flipping pancakes. He did not turn. Harry, at the kitchen table with a mug of tea and Tuesday on his feet, looked up. Ah, said the Joker, the headmaster. Finish your pancake, kiddo. He'll wait. Harry finished the pancake. He walked over to the hearth. Albus Dumbledore's head floated in the green half-moon, spectacles and all. Good morning, Harry. Good morning, sir. May I come through, please? I shall be only a moment. Dumbledore stepped through. He had, even in a stranger's kitchen, the gift of making the room adjust to him, not the other way around. He bowed very slightly to the Joker, who, without turning, flipped a pancake into the air and caught it on the plate. Mr. Jack, headmaster, I apologize for the hour. Not at all. Pancake, thank you. I would enjoy one. The Joker turned, plated a pancake, added a small pat of butter and a discreet drizzle of golden syrup, and set it in front of the old man at Harry's table. Dumbledore ate it. He ate it the way a man eats when he has decided not to let a room frighten him. The pancake was very good. Mr. Potter, he said, setting down his fork, I have come privately to offer you, for the second time, a choice I made in the hospital wing. I do not intend to make a habit of it. Once is a kindness, twice is insistence, so this shall be the last time I shall ask, unless you ask me first. Sir, I have a house, my brother has a house. I know 6 families who would take you in the time it takes you to finish this tea. I'm able to arrange, within the day, a legally unimpeachable replacement of your guardianship. You would be safe. You would be—" Dumbledore hesitated. "Ordinary." Harry set down his mug. "Sir, you have come all this way to ask me a question you already know the answer to." "I have come all this way, Harry, because a headmaster who does not come all this way when there is a chance has ceased to be a headmaster." "I understand. What is your answer?" Harry looked at Dumbledore. He looked at his father at the stove, with the Joker's back to the room, who had not, in the entire exchange, turned. He looked at his dog. He looked for a moment out the kitchen window at the long empty valley and the sheep on the middle slope. "My answer, sir, is number with thanks." He smiled, small, and with biscuits. Dumbledore closed his eyes for a half-second. He opened them. "Very well, Harry. Will you stay for another pancake, sir?" "No, thank you, Harry. I shall go back and allow you your breakfast." Dumbledore rose. He paused. "Mr. Jack." The Joker at the stove turned, and for the first time that morning his face was bare, no grease paint, no smile, only the long pale planes of him and the eyes that had once, in another world, ruined a city. "Headmaster." "I have not liked losing this argument. I know. I suspect," said Dumbledore very quietly, "that you do not entirely like winning it." The Joker considered this. He did the thing with his eyes he only did for his son. He inclined his head a quarter-inch. "I have been surprised," he said, "by the expense." Dumbledore regarded him. He nodded once. He stepped into the green flame. He said Hogsmeade in a clear voice. He was gone. The fire settled. Harry finished his tea. "Dad." "Yes." "You were afraid he would take me." "Yes, I wasn't going to go." "I know, small person. That is not the same as me not being afraid." At dawn on the 1st of August, they walked to the pier at Saundersfoot. They went because the Joker had said he had one more thing, that summer, that he needed to do in the open before they found the next place to disappear into. It was the kind of request Harry had learned to take at face value. They left Tuesday with the landlady at the cottage. They took the rolls to the coast in the dark and parked above the harbor and walked down the cobbled street in the first gray, and they came out onto the wooden pier at the moment the sea began to take color. The Joker sat on a bollard. Harry sat on the boards beside him, legs hanging over the edge. The sea made the sound it makes. "Kiddo." "Yes, Dad, you know what I am." Harry did not answer at once. He let the question sit. He had been prepared for this question since the morning 2 years ago when he had watched his father close a door over a man in an alley in Liverpool. "Yes, Dad, tell me." "You are an accident," Harry said very gently, "that became a person. You fell out of a city in another world. You hit the ground in a ruined cottage in a country with different stars. You found a baby in the wreckage. You took him. You did not know when you took him whether you were going to eat him or love him. You chose love. You did not choose it the first minute. You chose it by the second day. By the third day you were stuck. By the fourth day you had started to enjoy being stuck, and since then you have, in the privacy of your own heart, been slowly and completely against your will becoming something else. You are the funniest man in any room I have ever been in. You are the cleverest. You are the most frightening on the occasions when you choose to be frightening. You are my father." Harry paused. He looked at the water. "And you are, if I am honest with you, sir, a man who will not get out of this alive. But you have several years, and you have me, and you have Tuesday, and we will do them properly." The Joker did not speak for a long time. "That was well spoken, small person." "Thank you, Dad. Are you going to be like me?" "No, Dad." "Good." Harry looked up at him. "Good, good," said the Joker. "I did not want to raise a me. I wanted to raise something of my own that was not me. I have raised mostly a you. I am, if I'm honest with you, sir, deeply relieved." They watched the sea. The Joker reached into the inside pocket of his coat. He took out a folded piece of paper. He did not unfold it. He held it loosely between his long fingers. "This," he said, "is a list of people who are going to try to kill you in the next 7 years. I have compiled it over the summer from your letters, from the papers, from a quick consultation in a pub in Cork with a man I do not approve of but who keeps files. There are 19 names on it. I am going to give it to you in a moment. You are going to read it. You are going to memorize it. You are going to burn it. And you are going to remember that none of these people have any idea what they are walking into." Harry took the paper. He unfolded it. He read the names. He read them twice. He did not recognize all of them. He would, over the years, come to recognize each. He folded the paper. He did not burn it. He had nothing to burn it with on the pier at dawn, but he put it in his inside pocket and said, "Dad, I will burn it tonight." "Good boy, Dad." "Yes, I have something to give you, too." The Joker raised an eyebrow. Harry reached into his own pocket. He had, over the last 4 weeks, made his own list on the back of a receipt from the jazz club in Soho. It was not a list of names. It was a list of rules. He had numbered them. He had written them in his neatest hand. He handed it to his father without speaking. The Joker unfolded it. He read, 1. You will not die for me unless I am already dead. 2. You will not kill anyone I have not asked you to kill. 3. You will not ever use me to justify anything you are going to do anyway. 4. You will keep Tuesday alive as long as you can. 5. You will tell me when it is time for you to leave. You will not just go. 6. You will not teach me anything else I do not ask to learn. 7. You will not, when the time comes, ask me to forgive you. You will simply be forgiven because I have already forgiven you. Do not use this up asking for it. You will need the breath. The Joker looked at the list for a long time. The morning came up over the water. Kiddo. Yes, Dad. The Joker's voice, when it came, was softer than Harry had ever heard it. All right, all right, all right. These are the rules. I accept these rules. I will keep these rules. He paused. He looked at his son with his terrible, wonderful face, and he was, in that small moment, a father on a pier. I may also break one or two of them. I am me. I know. But I will tell you afterward which I broke. That's the deal. That's the deal. They sat for a while. Then the Joker folded the list and tucked it into his coat, next to where the other list had been, and he stood up, and he offered a hand down to Harry, and Harry took it, and his father pulled him to his feet. They walked back down the pier in the first real light. They walked past the rolls. They did not get in it. Joker had pocketed the keys without Harry seeing. He had left his coat open. He was humming a tune Harry did not know. Behind them, over the lip of the harbor, the sun came up and lit the wet cobbles. Dad, yes, you're walking. I am. Why? Because I want, said the Joker, to walk you back up this hill. I want to do an ordinary thing with you this morning. All right, Dad. They walked up the cobbled street. A milk float passed them. The milkman nodded at the Joker, who nodded back. A boy of 6 was already out on his own front step, eating a slice of toast. He looked up at the two of them, the tall, thin man in the long coat and the taller-than-he-had-been boy beside him with the black hair and the quiet face, and the 6-year-old lifted his free hand and waved. Harry waved back. The Joker waved back. They walked on. In the pocket of the Joker's coat, under the paper with the 19 names on it, under the short list of 7 rules, the Joker's fingers were closed loosely around the smaller, older thing that he had not told his son he had carried since Godric's Hollow. It was a scrap of blanket. It was the corner of the cloth in which Lily Potter had wrapped her son the night before she died, which had caught on the way out of the cottage on a nail by the door, and which the Joker had in the dark torn free and had kept all these years without ever once taking it out to look at. He did not take it out now. He only held it between 2 fingers and walked. Kiddo. Yes, Dad. I said something to you, said the Joker quietly as they came to the top of the hill on the first night. You were not old enough to remember it. I know. You know what I said. I've guessed. Tell me what you think I said. Harry smiled, a small, tired, adult smile. I think you said you were going to ruin me magnificently, Dad. Yes, I think you failed. The Joker laughed. It was not his big laugh. It was not the theater laugh. It was the laugh he only used for his son, which was a small private grunt that sounded like a happier version of a man catching his breath. Kiddo, he said, I don't think I did. I think I have ruined you magnificently for all of their purposes, for mine, for ours. Only you are ruined for my purposes in one particular and very unexpected way, which is that you turned out to be better than I wanted. And that is a ruin I did not see coming. And that is the only ruin, he looked down at his son, that I will ever admit to being proud of. Harry looked up at him. Dad, yes, that's a good line, write it down. I never write down the good lines, kiddo, then someone else gets them. They walked the last of the hill in silence, and the sun came all the way up, and at the crest of the hill the rolls was not the only thing parked. A small battered caravan with its headlights on had, overnight, been moved there by a friend of the Joker's whom Harry did not know. Tuesday was in the doorway of the caravan. The landlady was beside her, drying her hands on an apron. The caravan windows were open. There were geraniums on the sill. There was a wireless playing somewhere inside. Dad, yes, where are we going next? I haven't decided, small person. Good. The Joker stopped by the caravan door. He put his hand on the jamb. He looked inside at the fire on the hob, at the bed made up, at the small circular kitchen table, at the 2-cup teapot, and he looked out at his son who had his dog in his arms now, and who was watching him with those eyes that had always been just slightly too much for his face. Small person. Yes, Dad, after you. Harry stepped up into the caravan. The Joker, on the step behind him, paused a beat longer than was necessary, and then, without looking back, he too climbed up and he closed the door behind them. And in the quiet early morning, the wireless inside began to play, and a milk float passed below them on the road, and the sun came through the geraniums on the sill, and the boy who had been made in a ruined cottage on the 31st of October, 1981. And had grown up in caravans and condemned theaters and backrooms and basement jazz clubs, and had been sorted into a greenhouse full of clever children, and had, in his first year, already made the wizarding world change how it breathed, sat down on the small bench by the kitchen table, and opened a book, and let his father, for one more morning, make the tea. Chapter 6 End.